There are moments in human history when the world feels strangely larger than we imagine, moments when the past seems to breathe, as if time itself holds its breath and whispers a name through the rolling tide. One such whisper is Atlantis, a place spoken of for millennia, a name carried from the firesides of ancient storytellers to the glowing screens of the modern age. A legend so enduring, so impossibly persistent, that one begins to wonder if myths survive only when they are built upon a deeper truth. Tonight we return to that whisper, gently, slowly, letting it guide us into waters older than memory. So settle into the quiet. Let the crackle of distant fire become your companion. Let the calm pacing of this story become a slow tide, rising and falling, drawing you gradually toward a forgotten world. For this is not a tale of danger, nor a tale of fear. This is a journey, a wandering across centuries, to understand a civilization said to have vanished beneath the sea, and yet still echo through the ages. This is the silent continent beneath the waves, the first traces of a lost world long before Atlantis became a symbol of the impossible. It was a place described with surprising clarity by one of the most influential thinkers in human history, the Greek philosopher Plato. Around 360 BCE, Plato composed two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, in which he outlined the rise and fall of a mighty island civilization beyond the Pillars of Heracles, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar. There, across an expanse of ocean still unfamiliar to the ancient world, lay an island, vast, fertile, resplendent. Its people, he wrote, were descendants of the sea god Poseidon. Its lands were arranged in concentric circles of sea and earth, like ripples in a still pond. Its architecture shimmered in the light, adorned in orichalcum, a metal described as shining like fire. But Plato's description, though poetic, is not told like a legend. It is presented like memory or perhaps like a warning. He claims the story was passed to Solon, the famous Athenian statesman, by Egyptian priests. The priests, in turn, said it was already thousands of years old even by their time. This single chain, Egyptians to Solon to Plato, has become one of the most examined threads in all of historical mystery. But our goal is not to prove or disprove Atlantis. Our purpose is to step softly into its world, to see the landscape that ancient scholars envisioned, to understand the currents of history that gave birth to the story, and to feel the quiet wonder of a civilization spoken of as greater than Libya and Asia combined. Whether literal or symbolic, Atlantis occupies a unique space between myth and memory. Tonight, we explore that space. A continent of rings and rivers, Plato describes the Atlantean capital in remarkable detail. Imagine, for a moment, a landscape observed not through urgency or fear, but through the slow unfolding of a calm and ancient journey. You approach an island where green mountains rise gently along the horizon. Below them, a broad plain spreads outward, flat, open, stretching farther than the eye can comfortably measure. The air is temperate. The breezes from the sea carry a softness, scented with salt and distant forests. In the center of this plain stands the city, the heart of Atlantis. Concentric rings of land and water surround it. Three circular canals form glowing ribbons of blue, resting peacefully between circles of cultivated earth. Bridges arch gently over the waterways, connecting each ring like spokes of an immense wheel. At the center rises a small island, sacred, serene, containing a temple to Poseidon. Plato writes of walls flashing with red, black, and white stone, polished to brilliance. Metallic surfaces glimmer quietly in the sun. Canals reflect the light like mirrors. But the most striking detail is not the grandeur, it is the calm orderliness, the harmony between land and water. The sense of a civilization built not through conquest, but through mastery of balance. It is said their canals extended outward into the plain, bringing gentle irrigation to fields rich with crops. Their harbors welcomed ships from distant lands. Their roads stretched across the island like veins in a living body. The Atlanteans, Plato says, lived in abundance, guided by laws etched on a column of orichalcum. They prospered not only in engineering, but in knowledge, in governance, in cultivation of the earth. The world they built was not one of magic or spectacle. It was one of quiet brilliance. An ancient memory across civilizations. What makes Atlantis so unusual is not merely that Plato wrote about it, but that echoes of a similar memory appear in civilizations utterly unrelated to ancient Greece. Far across the world, the Maya tell of a lost homeland beneath the eastern sea. The Egyptians spoke of lands swallowed by rising waters long before their dynasties were born. Indigenous cultures in islands across the Atlantic recount ancestral lands drowned in a single night. These stories are never mirror images, yet they share a strangely resonant theme: a great land, a proud people, and waters that rose to claim what once stood above the waves. This is not evidence, but it is pattern, a gentle humming beneath the surface of human memory. Consider the fact that at the end of the last ice age, around 11,000 BCE, the oceans were dramatically lower. Great stretches of what is now sea were once exposed land. As the ice melted, coastlines were swallowed by the rising tide. To ancient people, the transformation would have felt apocalyptic, though it occurred over generations. Entire plains disappeared, shorelines receded, habitations were abandoned, and so across continents, stories of lands sinking beneath the waters began to emerge. Perhaps Atlantis is the echo of that era, a symbolic memory of the Earth reshaping itself. Or perhaps it refers to a specific place, now hidden under layers of sediment and centuries. Either way, the idea did not spring from nothing. It grew from a seed planted deep within human experience, an experience of watching the world change in ways beyond control. The story carries the weight of something lived, even if imperfectly remembered. A civilization of balance. Plato does not depict the Atlanteans as a perfect people. Rather, he describes a society that began in harmony. When the gods divided the world among themselves, Poseidon received an island at the edge of the known sea. There he fathered 10 sons, each ruling a portion of the island. They governed through cooperation, holding council every few years, reaffirming their laws and unity. This is remarkable, for most ancient myths emphasize conflict, brothers at war, rival gods, endless strife. But the story of Atlantis begins with peace, with order, with the image of a civilization rising through collaboration. For centuries, their prosperity grew. They built temples, harbors, and palaces with a measured hand. They expanded their knowledge of agriculture, architecture, and astronomy. They learned not only to chart the stars, but to understand their seasonal rhythm. Their island was rich in metals, minerals, forests, and fertile soil. The Atlanteans harnessed these gifts without excess, at least for a time. And this detail becomes important. Because the heart of the story, its caution, its meaning, lies in the slow shift from balance to ambition. Not through violence, but through the creeping changes that come with prosperity. Plato writes gently of this transformation, that in the beginning the Atlanteans carried within them the divine virtue of their ancestor. But as generations passed, that divine spark became diluted. Human traits, desire, expansion, pride began to take precedence. It is not a fall from grace, it is a gradual turning. A reminder of the natural cycle of civilizations. Whether Atlantis existed or not, the idea reflects the truth of human history. Great societies rise through harmony and slowly decline when that harmony fades. But this decline, too, is not depicted as sudden or catastrophic. It is described as a gentle drift, a slow forgetting of the principles that once kept them balanced. And in this, Atlantis feels not like myth, but like reflection. Across the pillars of Heracles, to understand the full meaning of Atlantis, one must picture the world as the ancients knew it. The pillars of Heracles, the threshold described by Plato, represented the farthest reach of the known world. Beyond them lay an ocean vast, mysterious, rarely sailed. To sail into the Atlantic in ancient times was not an act of danger, but an act of deep curiosity. The waters were said to be wide and gentle, the breezes soft, the horizon impossibly distant. It was not the realm of monsters, as later legends would claim. It was a quiet expanse, calm, serene, and profoundly unknown. If one imagines an island beyond that threshold, warmed by ocean currents, flourishing with fertile plains and marble structures, the picture becomes strangely plausible. The Atlantic is filled with submerged ridges, volcanic plateaus, and continental fragments whose origins remain debated even today. Places like the Azores, the Madeira archipelago, the Canary Islands, all lie upon geological formations that hint at ancient upheaval. Modern scientists do not support the idea of a sunken continent. Continents cannot simply disappear beneath the sea in a single night. Yet submerged landscapes, lost coastal plains, collapsed volcanic islands, these are not only possible, they are well documented. And so the question becomes not, did Atlantis exist exactly as Plato described? But rather, what memory, what ancient observation might have inspired a story carried across more than 2,000 years? The echo across time. For now, we stand at the threshold of the journey. Atlantis remains beneath the waves, distant yet strangely familiar. We have traced the first outlines of its story, its harmonious origins, its vast plain, its gleaming capital, its quiet prosperity. But the mystery stretches far deeper. In the chapters to come, we will drift slowly across ancient seas. Explore the meaning of Atlantis in Egyptian, Greek, and early Mediterranean thought. Walk through the great plain of Atlantis as Plato describes it. Examine real submerged landscapes that might mirror those ancient memories, and follow the gentle arc of the Atlantean rise and decline. Our pace will remain calm, like a boat drifting slowly upon still water. Our path will remain contemplative, never rushing, never startling. And our tone will stay anchored in wonder, memory, and quiet exploration. For the mystery of Atlantis is not solved through urgency. It is revealed through patience. And so, as the echoes of the ancient world soften into the night, we close this first chapter, letting the tide pull us gently toward the next. The night settles gently around the ancient world. The crackling of distant fire becomes a soft companion, and the story of Atlantis unfolds once more like a scroll unrolled beneath quiet starlight. Where Part 1 carried us to the threshold of legend, to the first whisper of a great island beyond the pillars of Heracles, Part 2 invites us to step quietly inland, to walk the broad plain that Plato described with such steady clarity, and to understand how the landscape itself shaped the destiny of the Atlantean people. Take a slow breath. Let the pace remain calm, unhurried. Let the imagery rise gently, like morning mist over forgotten shores. For our journey now moves across the earth. Across fields that once lay beneath the sun, across the heartland of a civilization that memory still holds in its quietest corners. The great Atlantean plain Plato describes a vast plain, level, fertile, and perfect in its proportions. Though written thousands of years ago, his description has a curious precision, as though he were painting a landscape scene not with imagination, but with the recollection of something once known. The plain, he says, stretched for hundreds of miles. Its edges met mountains of gentle slope, whose summits rested high enough to touch clouds and low enough to shelter the land from harsh winds. Imagine standing there, soft soil beneath your feet, the quiet hum of distant rivers threading across the earth, and fields that stretched outward with almost impossible calmness. There is a stillness to this imagined land, not empty but balanced. A place where ancient farmers tended wide terraces of grain, where orchards bore fruit in slow rhythm with the seasons, where flocks moved across gentle meadows under the guidance of herders who knew each path of the plain. The Atlanteans, according to the story, used the plain as both their granary and their center of life. It provided not merely sustenance but stability, the quiet assurance that each passing year would bring the same fertile abundance. And such abundance shapes cultures. When a people live in harmony with the land, when they do not fear the hunger of winter or the scarcity of drought, their societies often grow in thought, in artistry, and in exploration. One can picture, then, an Atlantean morning, a horizon washed with pale sunlight, rows of cultivated fields glistening with dew, and narrow canals carrying water from the mountains to the plain in a system refined across generations. The scene is not one of grandeur or spectacle. It is one of serene order, a landscape shaped slowly, with patience, by hands that understood the rhythms of nature. A system of canals and quiet engineering. The canals of Atlantis are among the most fascinating elements of Plato's description. He tells of a people who carved waterways with careful intention, stretching like long, gentle strokes across the plain. Each canal, he writes, had a specific shape and purpose. Some carried mountain water downward in straight lines. Some wound along the land's natural contours. Others divided fields into perfect lengths, ensuring each harvest received the exact amount of water it required. This was not engineering born of urgency. It was engineering born of observation. Imagine an Atlantean canal in the early afternoon. The water glides slowly, catching the sunlight in quiet flickers. The banks are lined with smooth stones shaped by generations. Farmers move along its edges in deliberate, unhurried steps, adjusting small gates that guide the flow. There is a peaceful intelligence in such scenes, a sense that the people understood their land intimately, not as conquerors, but as caretakers. Some historians believe this part of Plato's description may echo real agricultural systems from the ancient Mediterranean, the Near East, or even Egypt. Wherever such systems existed, they required generations of accumulated wisdom. Atlantis, whether real or symbolic, embodies that kind of wisdom. A society does not build harmony suddenly. It grows slowly through centuries of learning. And here again, Atlantis feels less like a tale of fantasy and more like a memory of a civilization shaped by gentle mastery of its environment. The mountains beyond the plain rose mountains, tall, forested, and rich with minerals. Not jagged peaks, but long ranges that curved gently like old stone backs beneath the sky. Imagine a high Atlantean mountain path, sunlight filtering through ancient trees, the air cool and fragrant, the silence broken only by wind brushing lightly through leaves. These mountains sheltered villages and settlements built from stone and timber, modest, enduring, shaped by nature rather than against it. Atlantean shepherds might have guided their animals along ridges where wild herbs grew. Miners could have carved quiet tunnels to extract metals like gold, silver, and the famed orichalcum, a metal said to shine with reddish brilliance. Yet even in mining, the Atlanteans seemed to maintain balance. The story never speaks of exploitation or devastation of the land. Instead, one imagines a people who took only what they required, mindful of the earth, patient with its gifts. In this sense, the mountains were not merely resources. They were guardians. They framed the plain, protected the island from harsh weather, and offered vantage points from which the people could observe the sea's distant expanse. From one such vantage, perhaps, an Atlantean elder might look out across the broad plain and feel a deep connection to the land, as though the island itself were a living companion. This connection, Plato implies, was central to their early prosperity. To understand Atlantis, then, is to understand not only what they built, but how they saw themselves in relation to the natural world. A land of sacred order in many ancient cultures, the arrangement of land held deep symbolic meaning. The circular capital of Atlantis, with its concentric rings of land and water, may reflect ancient concepts of cosmic harmony. To the Atlanteans, the world may have appeared as a balance of elements, water and earth, order and flow, the known and the unknown. The capital's structure echoed this balance. Its rings were not merely practical defenses or harbors, they were statements of identity. Plato mentions that the central island held a sanctuary of Poseidon, the god who shaped the island itself. But again, the tone is not one of divine intensity or fearful reverence. It is one of quiet respect. Picture the temple, columns rising from polished stone, a long pool reflecting the sky, shrines carved with calm expressions, and gentle offerings placed beside serene statues. Visitors walk barefoot on stone softened by centuries of footsteps. Priests tend to fires that burn low and steady. Musicians play instruments whose notes drift softly across the rings of water. This is sacredness not through spectacle, but through stillness. Within this atmosphere, the Atlantean people reaffirmed their unity every few years. Their leaders gathered in peaceful council. Their laws, etched on a great metal column, were read aloud in the quiet of dawn. Plato describes this with a tone that suggests admiration, a civilization that nurtured order through ritual rather than force. And yet he hints this harmony was not eternal. Slowly, subtly, the island's prosperity carried with it a shift, a gentle drift away from their earlier balance. But that is a later part of the story. For now, we remain in the era of peace, when the island flourished like a garden tended with care. Tracing the geography across time over the centuries, explorers, historians, geologists, and philosophers have searched for the real-world counterpart to Plato's description. Though no consensus exists, the ideas themselves form a quiet, fascinating landscape. Some point to the Atlantic Ridge, a vast underwater mountain chain stretching like a spine across the ocean floor. Others look to the Azores, where volcanic islands rise abruptly from deep waters. Some consider the possibility of a now-submerged plain that existed near Europe's ancient coastlines during the last ice age. None of these theories is definitive, but each contains a fragment of possibility. What is most interesting is not the certainty, but the persistence. People across centuries have felt drawn to the idea that a once great civilization might lie beneath the sea, not as a dramatic catastrophe, but as a gentle reminder that time reshapes all things. The earth rises and sinks. Coastlines change. Islands appear through volcanic birth. Others erode and vanish into the waves. In this shifting world, memories can survive long after landscapes disappear. Perhaps Atlantis is one such memory, an echo carried through generations, preserved through stories told beneath the flickering light of ancient fires. The rhythm of Atlantean life let us, for a moment, slow our pace even further, to imagine a day in the life of an ordinary Atlantean during the height of their civilization. The sun rises softly over the eastern sea, painting the sky with hues of silver and pale gold. Along the plain, farmers step into fields warmed by early light. Rows of grain sway gently in the morning breeze. The canals murmur with flowing water, reflecting the sky in liquid ribbons. Wooden boats, small and quietly gliding, drift along these waterways carrying goods, tools, or harvested crops. In the capital, merchants open their small shops, simple structures of stone and wood. Potters shape clay with steady hands. Metalworkers polish tools whose surfaces gleam brightly. Scribes record harvests on tablets made of wax or thin stone. Children run along the edges of the rings, careful not to fall into the waters. They laugh softly, not wildly, as though they have been taught from a young age to move gently in the presence of something sacred. At midday, the scent of freshly baked bread drifts across streets warmed by the sun. Small groups gather beneath awnings to share meals and discuss the slow turn of the seasons. As evening approaches, the sky deepens to a muted orange. The sea glows along the horizon. Fires are lit within the temple, their reflections dancing across the still waters of the canal. The day ends not with noise, but with calm. One can imagine music, flutes, or stringed instruments weaving through the air as people sit by lantern light, speaking softly about the tides, the stars, and the stories of their ancestors. Nothing in this imagined world feels hurried. Nothing feels desperate. It is a civilization shaped by time and by its own understanding of time's gentle flow. Toward the next horizon, we have now walked the Great Plain, traced the canals, and glimpsed the quiet order of Atlantean life. Yet the heart of the mystery still lies ahead. In the parts to come, we will explore the symbolic meaning of Atlantis in ancient thought, possible historical inspirations for the myth, the global patterns of rising seas after the ice age, the slow transformation of the Atlanteans from harmony to ambition, and the long echo that the story cast across later civilizations. But for now, we allow this chapter to settle, like sand drifting gently to the ocean floor. Thus, the mystery rests once more beneath the quiet passage of time. As the night deepens and the quiet hum of the fire settles into a steady rhythm, the ancient world unfolds again, softly, as if rising from the distant horizon of memory. The tale of Atlantis does not rush. It drifts. It flows, like the tide that touches the shore in long, unbroken breaths. And so we continue our journey not into war nor into glory, but into the gentle structure, the symbolic heart, and the serene order of the Atlantean capital. The concentric kingdom, where rings of water and land circled outward like echoes upon a still pond. Here, in this part of the story, we walk slowly among the stones, the waterways, the sanctuaries, and the quiet rituals that shaped a civilization whose memory remains suspended between myth and possibility. The rings of water and stone imagine descending a gentle road toward the center of the Atlantean island. Plain stretches behind you, but now you approach its heart, the place where the island's identity was carved into form. Before you lies a city unlike any other. Not chaotic, not crowded, not jagged with narrow streets or towering structures. Instead, it is smooth, circular, and quiet, arranged in round layers as if following the rhythm of nature itself. 3 rings of land, 2 rings of water, each perfectly shaped as though the earth had been persuaded, not forced, to mirror the geometry of the heavens. From above, the city would resemble a great symbol, a mandala of earth, and see a living diagram of harmony. Step into this vision slowly, let its calmness settle over you, and picture how each ring served its purpose. The first ring, the sacred heart, at the very center stands a small island, a sanctuary encircled by the innermost waters. Here rests the temple of Poseidon, the god to whom Atlantis owed its origin. But this temple, as we imagine it, is not a place of fire and thunder. It is a quiet sanctuary. The stone is pale and polished. The central hall glows softly with oil lamps. A long reflecting pool holds the light of the flames, doubling their glow. Columns rise like ancient trees, supporting a roof carved with scenes of the sea. Here, priests move in slow, deliberate steps. They maintain the eternal flame not with pomp, but with care. And outside, a tranquil garden circles the sanctuary, fragrant herbs, small stone benches, and pathways worn smooth by centuries of gentle footsteps. This inner island is not loud with ritual. It is serene with remembrance, a place where the Atlanteans honored the balance between land and water, between creation and stewardship. The second ring, the royal grounds encircling the sacred temple, is a broader band of land, the ring where the royal household once lived. Not in towering palaces, not in elaborate fortresses, but in open-air courtyards, shaded walkways, and stone halls designed for council and contemplation. The buildings are modest in height, built low and wide, blending with the landscape so that nothing disrupts the natural symmetry of the rings. A soft breeze moves through their corridors. Water from the surrounding canals glistens in small basins set along the path. Birds rest on carved lintels, their songs drifting across the open spaces. This is where the ruling family and their caretakers lived quietly, observing the rhythms of the island, listening to the needs of their people, and preserving the long traditions handed down through generations. In these halls, decisions were made slowly, not driven by urgency, but shaped by careful deliberation. Atlantis, in its early age, was not a power driven by conquest. It was a society shaped by equilibrium. Each ruler served not as a master, but as a guardian. The third ring, the people's city, the outermost ring of land, holds the dwellings of artisans, scholars, farmers visiting from the plains, sailors preparing for voyages, and traders carrying goods across the island. Here the quiet hum of daily life unfolds, never frantic, never rushed. Stone homes with smooth walls and rounded corners line the curved streets. Workshops open to small terraces where craftsmen shape clay or carve wood. Children sit beneath awnings as elders teach them stories of the sea, the stars, and the old beginnings. Along the water's edge, small wooden boats tie to stone posts, boats used not for war, but for travel between rings, for fishing in calm waters, or for carrying offerings to the temple. From this outer ring, the entire city can be seen in harmonious layers, a living symbol, an arrangement not just of architecture, but of identity. This design, Plato says, was not accidental. It was inherited from their earliest ancestors, from the children of the god and the first people of the island. But symbols like these do more than reflect history. They shape how people perceive their place in the world. Atlantis viewed itself not only as a nation, but as a reflection of nature's balance. A city of quiet sound, there are cities in history known for noise, the clamor of markets, the echo of metal striking metal, the ceaseless movement of thousands of footsteps. Atlantis was not one of them. Even at the height of its activity, the soundscape of the city would have been quiet and soft. The gentle flowing of water through the channels, the tapping of craftsmen shaping pottery, the murmur of traders speaking in low tones, the flutter of sails in the harbor, the rhythmic clatter of wooden wheels on smooth stone, the whisper of wind slipping between rounded walls, no loud cries. No chaotic clangs. No harsh echoes. Life unfolded like a slow tide, steady, continuous, and measured. A visitor observing the city for the first time might have felt transported into a realm where time moved differently, not in sharp seconds, but in long, flowing breaths. The concentric design amplified this effect. Sounds softened as they moved outward. Voices mellowed as they traveled across water. The central sanctuary always remained cloaked in gentle quiet. It was, in essence, a city built for harmony. The Atlantean harbors and the murmuring sea beyond the circular city lay the greater harbor, a long, open crescent where ships rested like large birds on calm waters. Here, too, the scene was peaceful. The sea at Atlantis's shores was not portrayed as violent or unpredictable. It was a companion, a doorway to other lands, a provider of fish, a route for trade. Sailors moved along the docks with practiced ease. Ropes were coiled neatly. Wooden crates filled with grain, pottery, or metal ingots were carried by hand or by simple pull carts. The ships themselves were elegant, long vessels crafted with care rather than extravagance. Their sails were dyed in soft hues, pale reds, muted blues, gentle browns, absorbing the sun in warm tones. From this harbor, the Atlanteans could travel in any direction, north toward the cold, rocky coasts, west into the deeper expanse of the ocean, south toward warm islands with lush vegetation, or east toward the known continents of ancient Europe and Africa. Trade was not merely economic, it was cultural. Ideas, stories, and customs drifted into Atlantis like drifting seeds carried by wind and tide. One can imagine an evening in the harbor where fishermen return at dusk, their boats gliding quietly across the darkening water. Lanterns flicker along the docks, casting long reflections that shimmer with the slow movement of the sea. In the distance, the circular city glows softly, a calm beacon amid the vast ocean. Understanding the Atlantean mind, much of the mystery of Atlantis lies not in its architecture or its geography, but in the mindset of its people. Plato describes them as Wise, self-disciplined, balanced, deeply respectful of nature and cautious with power in the early centuries, these traits guided their way of life. A society that values balance grows differently from one that values expansion. Its priorities shift. Knowledge becomes more important than conquest. Harmony becomes more important than wealth. Stewardship becomes more important than ownership. Such a mindset shapes every aspect of life, from how homes are built to how disputes are resolved. Imagine an Atlantean council meeting, a low stone hall open to the air, a round table carved from a single piece of dark wood, council members entering quietly, each carrying a small tablet of notes, discussions held in moderate tones with long pauses for reflection, decisions taken not by forceful voices but by collective agreement. This was not a perfect world, none ever is. But it was a world guided by a philosophy of calm deliberation. Atlantis, before its later shift, was a place where patience was a virtue, and patience shapes destiny just as much as ambition. The symbol of the rings, the circular design of the city, invites deeper reflection. In many ancient cultures, circles symbolized continuity, eternity, unity, the cyclical nature of life, the harmony between heaven and earth. Atlantis's rings may have represented these ideas, consciously or unconsciously. At the center, the sacred heart. Around it, the leadership. Around them, the people. Beyond that, the sea, the plains, the mountains, the world. It was a design that echoed the cosmos itself. Ancient observers of the heavens often saw the world as a series of circles, the orbit of the moon, the path of the sun, the movement of stars around the celestial pole. Atlantis's city might have been humanity's attempt to mirror that celestial order on Earth, a way to live within the patterns of nature, rather than imposing upon them. Even if Plato invented the symbolism, the idea holds power. Civilizations often express their values through the shapes they build. In Atlantis's case, the shape was a circle, the geometry of harmony. The flow of time as centuries passed, the Atlantean capital remained a serene heart of the island. Generations lived and died within its rings. Traditions repeated year after year. Rituals unfolded in familiar patterns. The soft clang of metalworkers echoed across water for countless mornings. The scent of incense lingered along temple steps for thousands of evenings. Imagine a child growing up in this place, hearing ancient stories told in the cool shade of stone courtyards, watching the moon reflect across the canals, learning the constellations from elders who traced patterns in the sky. Life moved without hurry. The world beyond their shores seemed distant, not threatening, merely far away. For a long time, this tranquility endured, but every civilization, even the most harmonious, feels the pull of change. Not sudden, not violent, but gradual, like a tide rising slowly along the shore. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how that tide began to shift, how the Atlanteans, once stewards of balance, grew increasingly curious, increasingly ambitious, and increasingly connected to the lands beyond their island. A transformation not born of greed, but of the quiet, natural evolution that all societies undergo across the long stretch of time. The days that followed seemed to move with the gentle patience of drifting tides. The expedition team had settled into a rhythm, quiet mornings preparing equipment, long afternoons listening to the hum of machines, and still evenings gazing across a sea that never revealed more than it wished to. Yet beneath that calm surface, the ocean seemed to press upon them with a quiet insistence, as though inviting them deeper into its hidden memory. Dr. Aveline Marin, the project's lead historian, spent each night studying ancient scripts inside the dim glow of the research vessel's library. Unfurling scroll after scroll, she traced lines drawn by hands that had vanished thousands of years before. Some symbols appeared familiar, variations of early Mediterranean glyphs, yet others felt older still, almost primordial, as if shaped in an age before recorded civilization. Outside, the ocean breathed. Inside, the forgotten past whispered. A soft beginning to the day. On the fourth morning, the sun rose with a muted calm, its pale light illuminating the deck in a wash of soft gold. The sea lay smooth as a glass tablet. Even the waves seemed reluctant to disturb the moment. A light breeze carried the scent of salt and something else, something faintly metallic, like minerals carried upward from great depths. The crew moved with unhurried motion, speaking softly, their actions synchronized by days of disciplined routine. Ropes slid quietly across the deck, and the low murmur of sonar equipment blended with the steady thrum of the research vessel's engines. It was a morning perfectly suited for discovery, calm, observant, almost sacred. "Today," Aveline said gently as she joined the team, "we follow the signal a little deeper." Her voice carried no urgency, only curiosity, only reverence. And so, with the cautious grace required by deep-sea exploration, the team prepared to release the next descent module, an instrument-laden sphere capable of capturing detailed imagery of submerged structures. They lowered it slowly into the ocean, and the surface parted around it like silk. Down it went, slipping beneath the pale morning light and into the muted twilight zone, where the boundary between present and ancient memory seemed to blur. The first glimpse of the murmuring stones hours passed with gentle patience. The descent module sent back readings, temperatures, pressure changes, sonar reflections. Most were expected, some were intriguing. Then, just past 600 meters, the sonar revealed something different. Lines, not random, not natural. Lines arranged with intention. The module drifted across a slope of the seafloor, and at its center stood shapes that rose in structured formation. Broad platform-like terraces, stone slabs arranged in geometric alignment, and pillars half swallowed by the sea's slow embrace. The crew leaned in, their voices reduced to whispers. No one dared to speak loudly. The pillars were carved not by machines but by hands. The carvings were weathered, blurred by thousands of years of currents. Still, faint grooves remained, patterns curved in arcs, spirals, and interlocking circles that repeated with mathematical consistency. Shapes reminiscent of constellations. "They're arranged like a calendar," murmured Aveline. Her fingers traced the printed sonar lines as though the act would help her feel the stone itself. Yet these structures rested deep beneath the waves, far below any level humans could have built upon during known history. Unless the land had once stood above water. Unless an entire continent had existed here, now claimed by the sea. This region had many names, but one name whispered through time louder than any other: Atlantis. Descending through the quiet blue, the team prepared for a closer investigation. The more advanced imaging vehicle, a sleek remote-operated craft named Nereid, was gently lowered into the water. Its lights glowed softly, pale spheres moving down into the dark like descending lanterns. As Nereid descended, the crew watched the live feed with the stillness of scholars observing sacred texts. At 400 meters, the world dimmed to a permanent twilight. Shadows moved slowly across the terrain, as if the seafloor itself breathed in long, silent rhythms. At 500 meters, the rocks took on deep blue hues, shaped by erosion into forms that resembled temples long forgotten. At 600 meters, the first murmuring stones appeared. They were called that not because they made any sound did not reach them at this depth, but because their very shape seemed to suggest quiet conversation. Rows of stones stood tilted together like elders leaning in to speak of ancient days. Cracks along their surfaces formed patterns that bore faint similarity to early proto-writing, though older than any known script. The stones seemed to hold stories, too old to be fully remembered, yet too significant to disappear entirely. Nereid drifted closer, its lights sweeping gently across the submerged monuments. Grains of sand lifted softly, creating halos of suspended particles that danced like dust motes in an ancient hall. No sudden movements, no dramatic discoveries, only quiet revelation. Traces of a silent city beyond the murmuring stones, the seafloor descended into a long, wide valley. The feed revealed structures arranged in patterns too deliberate to be random. Platforms aligned with one another in precise intervals. Circular depressions shaped like gathering places opened in the stone. Long corridors carved into the rock faded into shadow. It was not a complete city, not one preserved like a frozen moment in time, but rather the quiet bones of one, its architectural spirit still intact, its form still whispering the intention of its builders. Aveline studied each detail with deepening wonder. "These foundations," she murmured, "echo an architectural principle far older than classical Greece, older than Minoan design, and yet they share elements of both." She turned to Dr. Kai Reyes, the marine geologist. "Could land here have been above sea level more than 12,000 years ago?" Kai nodded thoughtfully. "Earth's crust has risen and fallen countless times. Entire regions have submerged. If this area once stood above water, it could have supported a civilization we barely remember." Aveline's eyes softened with that contemplative glow scholars carried when standing at the threshold of understanding. "If so," she whispered, "then these stones may be among the oldest traces of organized culture ever found." The ocean hummed faintly through the vessel walls, an ancient chorus that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless worlds. The circle of tides toward the far edge of the valley, the imaging feed revealed something larger, massive concentric rings carved into the seabed. Though partially filled with sediment, their shapes remained unmistakable. Wide circles surrounding one another, each each boundary a marker. Aveline's heart quieted as she studied them. Plato's account of Atlantis had spoken of a central city built in rings, water and land alternating, arranged in perfect symmetry. Though scholars debated the tale, myth to some, metaphor to others, it had remained one of history's most enduring mysteries. But here, beneath the waves, the circles carved into the stone seemed to echo that ancient description, not perfectly, not completely, but enough to stir a sense of recognition. Nereid circled the rings slowly, its lights passing over carvings nearly erased by time. Some stones bore patterns resembling waves, others resembled the paths of stars. Spirals connected one circle to the next, as though symbolizing movement, ritual, procession, or the eternal return of tides. Aveline spoke softly, almost to herself. This place remembered the sky and the sea and something beyond both. Her voice carried the weight of long study, long curiosity, long respect for the quiet wisdom of forgotten ages. Echoes of craftsmanship farther along the valley floor, Nereid's lights revealed wide, flat stones set in near-perfect angles. Some lay in straight lines, others in gradual curves. Though erosion had softened their edges, the craftsmanship remained evident. It was careful, measured. Intentional, yet the type of stone itself puzzled Dr. Reyes. "These formations, they're not native to this part of the seafloor," he said, leaning closer. "The mineral composition suggests they formed on land, not under the ocean." Aveline breathed in slowly. "Then either the land sank or the waters rose." Both possibilities carried weight. Both required time measured not in centuries, but millennia. The stones, quiet and unmoving, offered no answer. But they invited reflection, invited the mind to drift backward through ages when coastlines shifted like drifting dreams and civilizations rose like brief sparks upon the tapestry of Earth's long story. A soft drift into deeper mystery, the day stretched on. Hours passed. The sea outside remained calm, as though aware of the delicate nature of the moment. The underwater structures, whether once part of a city, a ceremonial ground, or something else entirely, continued to unfold in quiet revelation. Each new angle brought new details. Each steady sweep of the exploration lights brought new questions. Nereid drifted toward the outer edge of the valley. There, nestled against a natural slope, stood a long row of upright stones. Some were short, some tall, yet all aligned along the same axis. Aveline exhaled softly. "A procession path," she whispered. She could almost imagine ancient footsteps moving along those stones, pilgrims, travelers, citizens walking a ceremonial route as the sun rose or set in alignment with the pillars. The sea had claimed the path, but its memory remained. A brief pause in the story as evening settled over the research vessel. Soft orange light touched the horizon. The crew gathered on deck, resting quietly after hours of observation. No one spoke of grand discoveries. No one announced conclusions. Instead, they spoke softly of patterns of stone alignments, of ancient tides, of civilizations lost not through catastrophe, but through the quiet, slow turning of the earth. Aveline closed her notebook gently. "We must not rush the story," she said softly. "The past reveals itself in its own time." Her words carried the calm wisdom that the sea itself seemed to teach. A gentle ending for part 4 as night settled around them, the ocean darkened to a deep indigo. Stars appeared overhead, quiet, patient watchers of the world's endless change. And somewhere beneath those stars, beneath hundreds of meters of water, beneath the drifting currents and the shadows of time, the murmuring stones rested in their silent valley. Their secrets were not fully spoken. Their story was not yet told, but their presence had begun to shape the journey. And so, as the soft echoes of the ancient world faded into the quiet flow of evening, the mystery waited, calm, unhurried, patient as the sea itself. Thus, the mystery rested once more beneath the quiet passage of time. The following morning unfolded with the quiet patience of a turning tide. No alarms, no urgency, only the gentle hum of the vessel's engines and the low murmur of the sea brushing against its hull. The horizon glowed with a soft, pale light, the color of dawn reflected through a thin veil of mist. It was the kind of morning that seemed to exist outside of time, neither wholly present nor entirely detached from the distant ages the team sought to uncover. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of salt and something older, something faintly mineral, as though it had drifted from the far depths where ancient stones slept. Dr. Aveline Marin stood on the deck, her notebook resting loosely in her hands. Overnight, she had sketched the circular formations revealed by Nereid, tracing their patterns again and again, searching for silent meaning in their geometry. Her thoughts drifted not toward answers, but toward questions, questions shaped by the rhythm of the sea, questions that reached backward into forgotten millennia. Behind her, the sun rose slowly. The ocean shimmered, and the story continued. A gentle beginning to the day's work, the research team gathered around the central table of the operations room. Warm light filled the space. The screens, still resting from the night before, flickered slowly to life. Kyray's, ever patient and thoughtful, adjusted the geological survey readings. "The sediment layers around the structures appear ancient," he said softly. "Much older than the earliest known Mediterranean or Atlantic civilizations. If this valley was once above water, then it existed in a climate far different from today's." Aveline nodded without speaking. She traced a finger along the edge of the sonar-rendered rings. "This region," she murmured, "has always been a meeting place, currents, tectonic plates, migratory routes, the kind of place ancient peoples might have chosen to settle." "Or to map," replied Dr. Elias Thorne, the team's cultural cartographer. His voice carried a thoughtful calm. "Some civilizations were explorers far earlier than we once believed. This could have been a hub, a center of knowledge." Aveline looked to him, her eyes softening. "And if so," she whispered, "perhaps their maps still rest somewhere below." The room fell quiet, not with tension, but with reverence. The idea felt almost sacred. The sea did not rise and fall in dramatic waves. Instead, it moved with slow, even breaths, as though listening. The descent to the stone canals, by midday, Nereid was prepared for a deeper dive. The imaging drone's lights were recalibrated to illuminate a wider field. Its slow, deliberate movement was adjusted to mimic the gentle gliding of a manta ray. Aveline insisted on this slower pace. "Let the past reveal itself," she said quietly. "We must not rush." The drone slipped once more beneath the surface. The ocean embraced it with serene quiet, a soft dimming of light, a steady shift from soft blue to deep cobalt. At 400 meters, the valley reappeared, the murmuring stones, the terraces, the faintly carved spirals. And beyond them lay something the team had glimpsed the previous day, but had not yet fully explored: long, linear structures that extended from the edge of the valley like branches of an ancient tree. Stone canals, each carved with remarkable precision, following a course that seemed both natural and guided. The drone drifted above them. Light swept across their surfaces like warm breath. Some canals appeared straight. Others curved gracefully, following the contours of the seabed. Their alignment suggested not mere architectural planning, but a deeper understanding of water flow, an early mastery of hydrology. Kai leaned closer, arms resting on the console. "These channels were crafted when there was still fresh water or coastline here," he murmured. "Not salt water, not ocean currents. They follow the gradient of a once living land." Elias added thoughtfully, "They could have been part of an irrigation system or a ceremonial waterway." Aveline shook her head softly. "No," she said, her voice calm and sure. "They follow astronomical alignment." The team looked to her. "The angles, the curves, I saw similar patterns in archaic star maps. These canals may reflect constellations. Some ancient cultures charted the heavens on the ground, temples aligned to solstices, villages built in the shape of star clusters." She pressed her hand gently against the edge of the desk. "This," she whispered, "may be a cartographic echo of a sky long forgotten." The stone compass of the drowned whirled farther along the canal system. Nereid's lights revealed a broad, circular depression carved into the seafloor. At first glance, it seemed like a gathering place, flat, wide, edged by stone. But as the drone circled above, a distinct pattern appeared. Lines radiating from the center, softly curved, gently sloping. Elias spoke first. "A compass," he breathed, and indeed it was. A vast compass carved from stone, nearly perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions, though slightly adjusted, as if reflecting the position of Earth's axis in a different age. The lines were no longer sharp, the sea had softened them, but their intention remained unmistakable. "This confirms it," Aveline whispered. "They mapped their world, perhaps even the world beyond their shores." She paused, letting the thought settle on the calm air. "A civilization with knowledge of astronomy, hydrology, architecture, and cartography, thousands of years before we believed such knowledge existed." The ocean seemed to nod in quiet approval. The whispering mosaic to the east of the stone compass lay another structure, low, flat, fractured by time. At first it appeared to be a simple platform, but when Nereid's light swept across it, thousands of tiny shapes glimmered back. Tiles. Small, colored tiles embedded into the stone, arranged in patterns so intricate that even erosion had not fully erased their meaning. Though many had been carried away by currents, enough remained to reveal glimpses of a mosaic, an ancient artwork of the sea. Elias adjusted the image to capture the pattern more clearly. "It's a map," he said softly, "or a timeline." Aveline leaned forward. The tiles formed waves, mountains, and long curved lines resembling trade routes. Beside these were symbols, stylized hands, concentric circles, triangles, and flowing curves that might have represented winds or currents. One symbol appeared repeatedly, a spiral with a small dot at its center. Aveline inhaled slowly. "That represents emergence," she whispered. "Many ancient cultures use the spiral to signify origin, birth, creation." Elias studied the pattern further. "And here," he said gently, "the spiral seems to be placed at the center of a landmass." The landmass had been worn by erosion, but its outline vaguely matched the shape of the valley below. "This mosaic," Aveline said, "might be their origin myth, or their memory of where they believed humanity began, a story written in stone." The mosaic did not reveal itself in dramatic clarity. It unfolded slowly, patiently, like a quiet conversation with time. A hallway of forgotten marks beyond the mosaic lay a sloping passage. Not a hallway in the architectural sense. There were no walls, no ceiling, but rather a natural rock formation that had been carved with symbols lit by the soft touch of the drone's lights. The carvings were shallow, softly drawn, almost delicate. Some resembled early proto-writing, the kind found in ancient cave sites on multiple continents. Others resembled constellations. Still others appeared abstract, swirls, broken lines, flowing patterns that might have represented water or wind. Aveline whispered, barely audible. They were recording something they valued, something they wished to remember. Her fingers traced the air, moving in the shapes of the symbols. Kai examined the geological layers around the passage. "These carvings are incredibly old," he said softly. "Before the last glacial melt, before any known seafaring society." The team fell silent, not with disbelief, but with awe. If the passage had indeed been carved before rising seas swallowed it, then the builders had stood on land now resting hundreds of meters beneath the ocean. Land that might once have formed part of a civilization that endured longer than its written traces. Perhaps Atlantis. Perhaps something else. Something older. Something remembered only in fragments carried through myth. The mapmakers of the deep Aveline closed her notebook slowly. "This was not a forgotten settlement," she said. "It was a center of knowledge." Elias nodded. "A cartographic hub, a school, a place where they recorded the world." Kai added thoughtfully, "and perhaps the sky." Aveline's eyes softened again, the way they always did when her mind reached across ancient landscapes. "Imagine a people," she murmured, "who watched the shifting tides, the rising stars, the turning of the earth. Imagine them carving their observations into stone for no audience but time." Her voice carried the calm weight of wonder. "Imagine their maps were not merely geographic, but spiritual, symbolic, cosmological." The crew listened quietly, the soft buzzing of the machines blending with the faint hum of the ocean beyond. Aveline continued, "We often think of ancient civilizations as isolated, each rising alone, each inventing knowledge independently. But what if there were centers of learning before the great cultures of Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus, the Andes?" She touched the edge of the mosaic image gently. "What if those who came later inherited fragments, stories told across oceans, memories preserved in myth, traditions carried by the first navigators?" The concept was not new. But the stones offered something rare, physical whisperings of an idea long doubted, long imagined. As the day softens into evening, the hours passed with calm purpose. Nereid continued its slow survey, capturing every gentle curve, every softened line, every symbol and stone that still held a memory of the world above. The sun outside dipped low, coloring the sky in muted reds and blues. The sea remained steady, its surface calm enough to reflect the dying light like polished glass. One by one, the team stepped onto the deck, settling into a quiet stillness shaped by the day's discoveries. No excitement, no urgency, just reflection. Elias spoke softly. "When cartographers draw the world, they draw themselves as well, their hopes, their beliefs, their understanding of existence." Aveline nodded. And here, beneath the waves, lies a reflection of a civilization we barely know, its understanding of the world preserved in stone. The horizon deepened into dusk. The water shimmered with tones of silver and blue. The vessel drifted gently, anchored yet somehow weightless, suspended between present and past. Aveline closed her notebook again, this time more gently. "We are only beginning to hear their story," she whispered. The world knew nothing of the chamber Dr. Arin and Professor Leila had entered, nothing of the trembling stone door, nothing of the echoing heartbeat under the earth, nothing of the subtle whisper that passed between the unseen cracks in the walls. The desert above was silent, but the underground world was awakening again, and the deeper they walked, the more the air felt aware. The labyrinth of living walls, the narrow tunnel ahead expanded into a vast circular chamber tall as a cathedral. The walls glowed not with paint or torchlight, but with patterns that pulsed like veins, as if the stone itself was alive. Arin whispered, "Leila, it's reacting to us." She raised her lantern. The carvings, spirals, triangles, symbols resembling constellations, shifted faintly, altering shapes whenever either of them stepped closer. "Not reacting," she said slowly. "Communicating." A cold vibration ran through the chamber floor, spreading beneath their boots like ripples across water. Suddenly the patterns froze, then one section of the wall sank inward with a groaning rumble, forming a narrow passageway, a path chosen for them. Arin clenched his jaw. "We can't turn back now." They stepped inside. The moment they did, the opening behind them sealed shut. The desert's ancient heart had swallowed them whole. To the first shadow, the narrow corridor twisted left and right like a serpent. Dust fell from the ceiling every few steps, and the walls occasionally shifted, changing symbols the way living creatures blink or twitch. Leila noticed first. "Arin, our shadows." He turned. His lantern cast their silhouettes long and thin against the stone. Except, Arin's shadow had three shapes, not one. One matched his body, the second was taller, the third shorter but with a strange curvature like a person carrying something heavy on their back. He swallowed hard. "That wasn't there earlier." Leila's voice trembled. "The inscriptions warned this might happen. The ancient texts described three shadows that watched the path." I thought it was metaphorical. The taller shadow tilted its head, not in sync with Arin. Leila stepped back. "No, no, that's impossible." The taller shadow moved again a second after Arin. Not mirroring, observing. The echoing voice, the corridor ended at a stone archway. A faint humming emerged from the darkness beyond, a frequency low enough to feel in the bones. Arin carefully stepped forward. From the blackness came a voice, not human, not robotic, something in between ancient and cold. "Two who walk with three, you have crossed the threshold of memory." Leila froze. "Who's there?" Silence. Then the voice whispered again from a different direction, as if surrounding them. "Those who seek truth must first remember what the world forgot." A cold gust blew through the archway, dimming their lantern. Arin steadied it. "What truth?" the chamber answered with a rumbling quake. Dust fell in small clouds, then a wall lit up with symbols, a story written in shifting light, a story older than pyramids, older than civilization. For the lost civilization before time, the symbols formed images, cities of stone floating above the earth, water rising skyward like reversed waterfalls, people with star-shaped markings across their foreheads. Leila translated slowly, her voice shaking. "Long before the known dynasties, there was a civilization called Aktal. Their knowledge wasn't magic, it wasn't superstition, it was something else entirely." Arin leaned closer. "Technology?" "No," Leila whispered. "Something beyond technology. They didn't build machines. They built living structures, stone that absorbed memory, walls that learned, chambers that responded to thought." Arin stared at the glowing patterns. "So this place is one of their creations." The symbol shifted to show a great disaster, a sky darkening, land splitting, oceans rising. Then the people of Aktal vanished, not died, vanished. Leila translated the final line. "They bound their knowledge in chambers." Waiting for a time when the world forgets so deeply that remembering becomes dangerous. Arin exhaled. "So we're not just exploring ruins, we're disturbing a warning." The second shadow, they entered another chamber, this one circular and lined with tall black pillars. A soft wind blew inside, though no opening existed. Leila suddenly grabbed Arin's arm. "Look!" Their shadows now had four shapes. His original, the tall watcher, the curved one. And a new form, a crouched silhouette twitching unnaturally. Arin's voice cracked. "What does a fourth shadow mean?" Before Leila could answer, the crouched shadow moved backward, pulling away from their lantern light as though something invisible was crawling behind them. Arin lifted the lantern higher. Nothing, only their shadows, but one of them was no longer still. Leila's breath quickened. It's copying emotions, not movements. It's responding to fear. Arin lowered the lantern. Then don't give it anything to feed on. Too late. The crouched shadow began stretching, growing taller, limbs elongating, forming sharp angles, becoming a shape that no longer resembled a human. 6. The test of memory, the pillars lit up, one by one. A beam of pale light struck the center of the chamber, revealing a stone platform with 3 symbols. A circle, black circle, a spiral, black circle, a triangle. Leila recognized them instantly. The trial of memory. It's mentioned in the Forbidden Archives. Only those who choose the correct path survive. Arin stepped onto the platform. What do we choose? Leila scanned the walls. The circle means life, endless continuation. The spiral means learning, knowledge without end. And the triangle, she hesitated. It means truth, but also destruction. Arin frowned. Why destruction? Because truth shatters illusions, and most minds are not ready for what lies beyond. Shadows behind them thickened, gathering like dark smoke. Arin pointed to the triangle. This symbol appears in every chamber we've passed. The walls reacted to our presence when we touched triangular patterns. Leila bit her lip. Then maybe it's guiding us. Or warning us, Arin replied. The tall shadow leaned closer toward the platform, its outline touching the triangle symbol. Leila gasped. Arin, I think it's choosing for us. He clenched his fists. No, we choose, not whatever's following us. He placed his hand over the triangle. The chamber exploded with light. 7. The gate of 3 SHADOWS. The floor shook violently, splitting into 3 pathways forming beneath them like a living maze. From the light emerged a massive door, a towering stone gate carved with swirling patterns, each rotating slow as a clockwork mechanism. Above the door was an inscription. Those who carry SHADOWS may pass. Those who fear their own memory must turn back. Leila whispered, the gate of 3 shadows, the entrance to the core archive. Arin swallowed. Then what's the 4th shadow? There was no answer. Instead, the walls began closing in. Leila looked at Arin with urgency. We need to pass before the chamber seals. They ran toward the gate. The tall shadow followed. The curved one dragged behind like a burden. The crouched one scuttled unnaturally, distorting as though trying to break free from the lantern's pull. The door began lifting slowly, ancient gears grinding in protest. 8. Inside the Forbidden Archive, the room beyond the gate was unlike anything they had seen. It wasn't carved from stone. It was grown, smooth, flawless like the inside of a pearl or the shell of a living creature. In the center floated a crystal sphere rotating in the air, humming softly. Leila stepped closer. This is impossible, Arin stared in awe. It's alive. The sphere responded to their presence, descending slowly. A beam of light shot from its core, projecting images across the chamber walls. Scenes flashed rapidly. Black Circle, a massive desert city built of glowing stone black circle towers moving like shifting dunes, people with geometric markings across their skin. Black Circle, a sky filled not with stars, but with floating structures. Black Circle, a gigantic triangular portal rising from the earth. Black Circle, and finally, a catastrophic event that tore the sky apart. Leila whispered. They weren't just advanced, they were trying to escape something. Arin frowned. Or hide something. The sphere suddenly flickered, then displayed a new image, 2 figures descending into the earth, carrying 3 shadows. Leila whispered, Arin, it's us. Before they could react, the chamber darkened. Only the sphere glowed. 9. The final shadow, AWAKNS. Arin felt a cold touch at his back. He turned. The crouched shadow had risen behind them, but now it had shape. A faint outline of a figure, not human, not creature, something in between. It stretched, growing taller, limbs elongating into cruel angles. The outline sharpened, forming a humanoid silhouette made of pure darkness. Leila stumbled back. No, it's not a shadow anymore. Arin raised the lantern. The figure didn't flee from the light. Stepped forward, it had become real. The tall shadow behind Arin twitched. The curved one trembled. Their outlines thickened, gaining mass. The chamber pulsed with panic. Leila screamed, Arin, the shadows aren't ours, they're guardians of this place. Arin's breath caught. Guardians or jailers? The darkness creature stepped forward again, its head tilted, its chest expanded. A soundless whisper echoed inside their minds. You were expected. The sphere pulsed violently, glowing brighter. The shadows lunged. 10. The Chamber of Revelations. Arin grabbed Leila and pulled her toward the sphere. Touch it, now! They pressed their hands to the sphere's surface. Warmth spread through their skin, rushing through their veins. The chamber exploded with blinding light. The shadows shrieked, not with pain, with warning. Arin felt something flood his mind, a memory not his own, a civilization speaking through time, a warning echoing through ages. You do not understand the danger. We did not vanish. We sealed ourselves away. To protect the world from what followed us. Arin gasped. Followed you? The voice inside the sphere answered. The shadows, they are not guardians. They are the remnants of the entity that ended our world, and now you have unsealed them. Layla's voice broke. No, no, that can't be. The shadows advanced. The sphere cracked. The chamber shook violently. Arin grabbed Layla's hand. We need to get out of here. But behind them, the gate was already closing, and the shadows were closing in. The air inside the crystalline chamber shifted, as though the room itself were breathing. Soft ripples of pale blue light moved across the walls, gliding like moonlit waves over quiet water. Arin steadied his breath, listening to the echoes of the ancient mechanism beneath the floor settle into a low, resonant hum. Leila, standing at his side, kept her lantern raised just high enough to illuminate the winding markings now carved into the luminous surface of the door behind them. The chamber was no longer still. The moment the great crystalline gate had awakened, the shadows had stirred, not violently, not with menace, but with the silent curiosity of forgotten guardians called from a long slumber. They clung to the walls and columns, not like dark figures, but like impressions of memory drifting free from the stone. Their forms were fluid, barely holding shape, as though sculpted by passing currents of faint light. One of them, no more than a tall distortion of shimmering gray, drifted closer. Leila stepped backward instinctively, but Arin gently placed a hand on her arm. It's all right, he whispered. They're not reaching for us, they're following what awakened them. The chamber answered his voice with a low, soothing vibration like the deep tone of an ancient conch shell blown across a forgotten shore. The shadows turned, not toward Arin and Leila, but toward the open passage leading out of the chamber. They're leaving, Leila murmured. They're following the flow of the mechanism. Arin nodded. Then we should follow them before the chamber resets. For the ancient world had rhythms of its own, and nothing stayed open for long. The passage of whispering columns. Arin lifted his lantern once more, guiding their steps toward the arched doorway. The shadows drifted ahead, their movements slow and deliberate, each one gliding like the memory of a figure walking long after the person was gone. As Arin and Leila stepped into the corridor, a gentle current of cool air brushed past them, not a wind, but a steady breath, as if somewhere deeper inside the ruins something vast exhaled. The passageway stretched before them, lined on both sides with slender stone pillars. Every few steps, low engravings caught the lantern's glow, revealing ancient scenes etched by hands that had vanished ages ago. A procession of figures carrying crystalline orbs, a great circular hall bathed in light. A city beneath a calm, endless sea, Atlantis, as the legends described, not in myths but in stone. The shadows glided past these carvings without pause, drawn toward the far end of the corridor where a pale cyan glow flickered softly, like distant reflections dancing across the surface of water. Arin and Leila kept pace behind them, neither rushing nor lingering. The ruins seemed to reward calm footsteps, punishing those who tried to hurry through their depths. It feels like the shadows are guiding us, Leila said quietly, or showing us the path they once walked, Arin replied. Leila traced her fingers lightly across an engraving, the curved outline of a massive dome rising from the sea. This could be the central vault, she whispered, the place where the last council gathered before the city fell. Arin nodded. The geometric patterns match the text from the Northern Archives. It's older than anything recorded. They continued through the corridor until the walls widened, curving outward into a chamber half lit by shimmering reflections that danced across the stone. The chamber of flowing light, the shadows pooled ahead of them, gathering around a circular depression in the center of the room. The depression was filled with a gently swirling mist, faint, glowing, and almost fluid in the way it drifted. Leila knelt beside it, her eyes soft with wonder. It's not mist, she whispered. It's concentrated memory. The Atlanteans preserved memories like this, threads of light drawn from crystalline archives. Arin knelt beside her. Look, they're entering it. The shadows leaned forward, dissolving slowly into the swirling light. Their forms blended into the mist like ripples fading into a calm lagoon. One by one they vanished, but the mist did not dissipate. Instead, it began to swirl faster, forming patterns, spirals, lines, symbols, all shifting with quiet grace. The light lifted slightly from the depression, rising like a gentle tide. A slow, resonant tone filled the room. Leila gasped softly. It's showing us something. The mist parted like a curtain, revealing a vision inside not clear but layered with soft shapes and diffused colors like a memory recalled after centuries of rest. In the vision they saw, a city bathed in warm, golden light, tall towers crafted from shimmering stone, vast canals flowing through open courtyards. And in the heart of it all, a great crystalline spire pulsed gently, its light flowing through the city like lifeblood. Atlantis, not destroyed, not in chaos, but peaceful, whole, alive. Arin held his breath. This is what it looked like before the fall. Leila's voice trembled with awe, not lost in devastation, but preserved in memory. The vision shifted. Now the spire dimmed, its rhythm slowing. People gathered at its base, working with tools that resembled tuning forks of light. Their movements were calm, deliberate. They were not panicking, they were performing a ritual. Not destruction, Arin murmured. A transition, a planned descent. Leila placed a hand over her heart. They didn't vanish by accident. They chose to descend beneath the waves. The mist's glow softened, the vision fading like sunlight beneath a passing cloud. The shadows were gone, absorbed into the memory, their purpose complete. The room fell still once more. Arin rose slowly. The chamber is stabilizing. Whatever they wanted us to see, they've shown it. Leila nodded. And now the path forward is clear. She pointed to the far side of the chamber, where a second archway glimmered faintly with soft blue lines, each one pulsing like the faint heartbeat of the ruins. The descent toward the heart beyond the archway, a staircase spiraled downward. Each step was carved from a single piece of stone, polished smooth by the passage of countless centuries. The air grew cooler as they descended, carrying with it a faint scent reminiscent of salt water, though there was no sea anywhere near their depth. Lantern light flickered across carved wall scenes, Atlanteans working in calm coordination, shaping streams of energy, guiding crystalline mechanisms, directing water through carefully controlled channels. The deeper they went, the more harmonious the images became. No chaos, no destruction, no fear. Arin stopped on one of the landings. The myths were wrong. This wasn't a disaster, Leila nodded. It was a migration, he smiled softly. A gentle farewell. The staircase opened into a vast circular hallway lined with crystalline panels. The panels glowed faintly as Arin and Leila approached, responding to their presence with the same soft resonance they felt in the upper chambers. Every few meters, a pulse of light traveled through the walls, a slow, rhythmic pattern like ocean waves rolling across a distant shore. Leila placed her palm against one of the panels. A soft chord rang through the hall and an image blossomed across the surface. An Atlantean astronomer tracking shifting tides, a council studying celestial cycles, a gathering of elders around a geometric model of the continent, their movements gentle, thoughtful, their expressions calm. Arin stepped beside her. They knew something was coming, a change in the alignment of the seas. And instead of resisting it, Leila whispered, they prepared for it peacefully. The image faded, returning to the soft, pulsing light. The quiet chase behind them, a faint echo stirred, not aggressive, not sudden, but like a cool breeze shifting the air within the hall. Arin glanced back. From the stairway, faint silhouettes glided into view. The shadows, he whispered. Leila's lantern flickered as the figures drifted closer, but they did not advance quickly. They moved with the same slow, patient grace they had shown in the chamber above. Their forms elongated and compressed gently as if shaped by underwater currents. They're not chasing, Leila said softly. They're accompanying, Arin nodded. They're part of this path, they walk it whenever someone reaches this depth. The shadows did not touch them nor block their path. They merely followed at a respectful distance, drifting like reflections of travelers from another age. Together, explorers of past and present, they moved deeper into the hall. The hall of resonant echoes, the hallway widened into another immense chamber. At the center stood a large circular dais, its surface inscribed with concentric rings. Each ring held markings shaped like musical waves carved into the stone. Thin streams of light passed along these rings, rising at intervals like soft breaths of luminescence. Leila walked onto the dais first. This is where the resonance began, Arin joined her. The heart of their energy system. Shadows lingered at the edges of the chamber, their forms quiet and still. Leila knelt and touched one of the glowing rings. A soft chord echoed through the hall. Arin's voice lowered. The tones, they matched the frequency from the chamber above. She nodded. The same resonance used to preserve memory. This is where it originated. A wave of calm washed over the chamber like the soft hush of a distant tide settling into sand. The shadows bowed their heads ever so slightly, as if paying respect. Arin exhaled slowly. This place, it feels like the last breath of the city. Leila raised her lantern, its glow reflecting across the rings. And the beginning of its silence. A gentle arrival, the far wall slowly parted, revealing another passage, narrow, calm, illuminated by faint glimmers of light dancing across its surface. The shadows stepped aside, creating a pathway. This time, Arin and Leila understood. The shadows were not following them, they were leading them, guiding them downward toward the deepest secret of the Atlantean descent. The corridor beyond beckoned softly. With steady breaths, they stepped toward it, and the echoes of the ancient world softened into a quiet hum around them. And so, as the echoes of the ancient world softened into the night, the travelers continued deeper, guided by shadows of memory toward the silent heart of a vanished sea. The corridor ahead sloped downward with a slow, graceful curve, as though the builders had carved it to imitate the descent of a gentle wave. Arin lifted his lantern, letting its warm glow stretch outward. The walls shimmered faintly, as if woven from layers of translucent stone through which soft blue currents drifted like distant starlight seen through shallow water. Leila stepped forward, her footsteps light and deliberate. "This passage, it feels like it was meant to be walked slowly." Arin smiled. Atlantis was never in a hurry. The faint figures, those quiet shadows of memory, glided silently behind them, never touching the ground, never reaching too close. Their presence was like a soft echo, a reminder that history itself moved at their heels. The deeper they walked, the more the air changed. It became cool but not cold, imbued with a delicate scent reminiscent of ancient rainfall over smooth stone. A faint vibration hummed beneath their feet, steady and rhythmic, as though the very floor responded to their weight with gentle pulses. Leila paused and placed her hand lightly against the wall. "It feels alive, not in a biological sense, but in memory," Arin nodded. "The stones were designed to respond to resonance. Maybe it remembers the last travelers who walked this path. And now us," Leila added softly. Together, they continued downward. The bridge of shimmering quiet after several minutes, the corridor opened into a wide chamber that took their breath away. A vast chasm stretched out before them, illuminated by the soft glow of luminescent crystals embedded deep within the walls. From these crystals flowed long streams of blue-white radiance, cascading down the sides of the chasm like falling ribbons of light, and across it all extended a single narrow bridge. The bridge was carved from a translucent material that resembled polished quartz, yet it was stronger and steadier than any stone. Beneath its surface, faint lines of light pulsed slowly, a heartbeat echoing that of the ruins themselves. Leila stepped onto the bridge first, her lantern casting warm reflections across its surface. The subtle glow beneath her feet intertwined with her light, creating a quiet dance of gold and blue. Arin followed, marveling at the awe-inspiring height of the chamber. The chasm extended so far downward that the bottom was lost beneath layers of drifting mist. Above them, the ceiling shimmered with crystalline patterns that resembled constellations drawn not in stars but in memory. "It feels like walking through a dream," Leila whispered. "It feels like walking through a memory of the sea," Arin replied. Halfway across, both stopped. Ahead of them, at the far end of the bridge, the faint silhouettes of the shadows appeared once more, but only as a small cluster, moving gently in slow, rhythmic motions. "They're waiting," Leila murmured. "Inviting," Arin added. The bridge vibrated softly beneath their feet, not a warning, but a peaceful resonance, as though acknowledging the presence of living travelers for the first time in uncounted centuries. When they reached the far side, the shadows drifted aside, opening a path toward a tall archway carved with looping patterns that resembled ocean currents swirling around islands. Beyond this archway, a soft glow shimmered. The heart of the ruins was near. The vault of descending light, the corridor beyond the archway, was shorter and more intimate. Its walls were decorated with circular patterns, each representing a phase of the moon, the tides, or celestial alignments. Set between these patterns were crystalline inlays that captured the lantern's glow like frozen droplets of starlight. As Arin and Leila entered, the shadows did not follow. They hovered at the entrance, dimming slightly as if acknowledging that the journey ahead belonged only to the living. Leila noticed. "They stop here. It must be the boundary," Arin whispered. "The point where memory ends and truth begins." The corridor opened into a massive chamber shaped like an enormous dome. Soft streams of light spiraled down from a crystalline apex high above, descending like slow-moving rays of sunlight filtered through clear water. The air carried a gentle hum, low, melodic, soothing. At the center of the dome stood a large circular platform surrounded by shallow steps. Resting upon the platform was a structure unlike any they had seen before. A massive crystalline sphere half embedded in the floor, its surface smooth and faintly luminous, like the calm surface of a lake reflecting moonlight. Leila stepped nearer, her lantern shaking slightly. This isn't a mechanism, it's an archive. Arin approached from the opposite side. The final archive. They exchanged a quiet, breathless glance. Around the sphere carved into the platform were spiraling runes that seemed to drift between visibility and invisibility, their shapes shifting gently like currents beneath a tranquil sea. Arin knelt and ran his fingers lightly across one of the spirals. These runes, they respond to intention. The Atlanteans encoded meaning not in the symbols, but in how they were experienced. Leila set her lantern down. This is where they stored their final memory before descending. She looked up at the top of the sphere, and where they left their last message. The awakening of the sphere as Arin and Leila stepped closer to the sphere, the glow within it shifted, responding not to touch but to presence. A soft pulse radiated outward from its core, then another, then another. The sphere brightened gradually, bathing the platform in a gentle blue and white radiance. Leila gasped softly. "It's awakening!" Arin whispered, "No, it's remembering." The pulses formed into a slow rhythm, like the waves of a calm shoreline. And then the sphere projected a soft, transparent veil of light outward, forming a circle around the platform. Inside this veil, faint images began to appear, blurry at first, like reflections on rippling water, then gradually sharpening into more coherent forms. Tall towers bathed in soft golden light, wide canals running between graceful archways, people dressed in flowing garments of luminous fabric. But unlike the earlier visions, these people were calm, collected, deliberate, shaping structures of light with their hands, conversing in slow, melodic tones. Leila whispered, "This is Atlantis in its final days, not in fear but in preparation." Arin watched as the image shifted. The great crystalline spire at the city's center dimmed slightly, and the citizens gathered around it in quiet ceremony. They raised their hands in unison, each holding a small crystalline prism. Light flowed from the prisms toward the spire, forming a luminous network that pulsed outward across the city. A low, melodic tone resonated through the vault. "The transition," Arin murmured. This was their final act before descending beneath the sea. The platform beneath their feet vibrated softly, in harmony with the scene. Leila watched the procession with wide, reverent eyes. They weren't lost, they weren't destroyed. They moved willingly to preserve knowledge. The vision grew brighter. The sea began to rise, not in chaos, but in gentle embrace, as the city lowered itself in perfect harmony beneath the waves. Structures shifted, compressing, sealing themselves with measured precision. Tidal channels redirected water smoothly, guided by glowing mechanisms. Atlantis descended slowly, calmly, dreamlike. And then the vision faded. The vault fell into a deep, serene silence. The sphere dimmed, returning to its soft, steady glow. The hum subsided into a gentle vibration beneath their feet. Leila placed a hand against the sphere, her voice a whisper. This was the truth they wanted remembered." Arin nodded. "A civilization that chose silence instead of collapse." Exhaled slowly, letting the enormity of the revelation settle in the quiet air. "And they wanted someone to find it. They left this pathway intact." The final descent within the vault as the vision faded completely, the runes around the platform glowed softly and shifted, aligning themselves into a smooth spiral that pointed toward a small alcove on the far side of the vault. Arin lifted his lantern. A narrow doorway lay there, one last passage descending deeper. Leila stepped toward it. "There's more." "Yes," Arin said quietly, "we're not at the heart yet." He looked back at the shadows behind them, or rather where they had once stood. The corridor was empty now. The silhouettes had dissolved, their guidance complete. A peaceful stillness settled over the vault like the soft hush of a calm ocean. Arin and Leila stood side by side. "Ready?" Leila whispered. Arin nodded. "The heart of Atlantis awaits." They stepped toward the final descent. And the echoes of the ancient world whispered softly around them like fading tides. Thus, the mystery rested once more beneath the quiet passage of time, even as the travelers moved deeper toward the silent heart of the vanished sea. The storm outside the valley had grown into a monstrous wall of swirling gray, stretching across the horizon like a living thing. As Arin and Leila scrambled up the narrow mountain path, the air buzzed with static energy, charged, alive, watching. Behind them, the shadows that had escaped the chamber crawled out into the open, spilling through the cracks of the mountain wall. They weren't just shapes now. They had form, rhythm, intelligence, like thin coils of night trained to hunt. Arin's breath burned as he ran. Leila's heartbeat hammered like a second storm. The path narrowed into a single stone bridge carved by ancient hands. The deep chasm beneath swallowed entire echoes. When Arin looked down, he saw no bottom, only a shifting darkness like a sleeping ocean made of night. "We have to cross," Leila said. The shadows slithered onto the stone behind them, one lifted upward, stretching like a serpent rising to strike. "Move," Arin shouted. They ran across the bridge as the stones trembled under sudden weight. The shadows moved faster than wind, gliding along the surface like spilled ink moving uphill. Halfway through the bridge, something happened. A faint hum, a vibration. The carving on Leila's wrist, the one that had marked her since childhood, began to glow. Not bright, not overwhelming, just present, as if the mountain recognized her. She froze. "Leila!" Arin grabbed her arm, but she stood unmoving, eyes wide as the light on her skin grew warmer, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. "I know this place," she whispered. "Not with memories, but with something deeper." Arin looked over his shoulder. The shadows were almost upon them. The light that answered the moment the first shadow lunged. Leila raised her hand instinctively. The glowing mark on her skin burst into a circular wave of pale gold. It wasn't fire, it wasn't light. It was memory made visible, humming like the forgotten warmth of a sun that hadn't shone for centuries. The beam struck the shadow, and for the first time the creatures recoiled, twisting backward like smoke caught in a violent gust. Arin stared. Leila trembled. The shadows hissed in silent agony. "Leila." "What did you just do?" Arin asked, voice cracking with disbelief. "I don't know," she whispered, but something inside me recognized them and reacted. Above them, the storm roared as if responding, its clouds spiraling faster. Thunder cracked like drums from another age. They ran again. The bridge ended in a tall stone gate carved with circular patterns, each symbol older than any known civilization. The air here was ancient, so ancient that breathing felt like swallowing time. Arin pushed the gate. Nothing, it didn't budge. Leila stepped forward and placed her glowing hand onto the cold stone. The carvings rippled like water touched by wind. Then KRRRMMM, the gate opened. Light poured through the widening cracks, revealing a hidden plateau beyond. The view stretched wide, a vast open floor of stone platforms, monoliths, and spiraling ruins that seemed arranged deliberately, precisely. "This isn't just a valley," Leila whispered. "It's a map." Arin's eyes scanned the formations. Circles within circles, paths leading nowhere. Pillars aligned with impossible precision. But before they could step forward, a single shadow reached the gate behind them. It stretched, elongated, twisted, then shifted into a shape that was terrifyingly familiar. A humanoid silhouette. It spoke without a mouth, its voice vibrating the stone around them. "The memory bearer has awakened. Return to the chamber. You are not allowed to stray." Arin grabbed Leila's arm and pulled her through the gate. The gate slammed shut behind them. The plateau fell silent. Only the distant rumble of the storm remained. The plateau of the 6 CIRCLES, a soft wind carried dust across the surface. Arin and Leila walked cautiously among the stone formations, following the faint hum of energy beneath their feet. Every step felt like walking on top of sleeping giants. Leila kneeled near a broken pillar. "Arin, look!" He joined her, brushing away some dust. Underneath, engraved in ancient stone, the language of the SKYWALKERS, the symbols glowed faintly under Leila's touch, responding as if they had been waiting for her alone. "I've seen this before," she said softly. "In dreams, in flashes, but I thought it was imagination." "What if it was?" Arin said. "What if it was memory?" Leila didn't answer. She couldn't. Because at that moment the ground beneath the plateau shifted, just slightly, but enough to awaken the circles carved across the stone. One by one they lit up. A circle of white, a circle of blue, a circle of crimson, a circle of gold, a circle of black, and at the center a massive circle of shifting colors like a portal caught between opening and remembering. Arin shivered. Leila's breath hitched. 6 circles, Arin said. "But what do they mean?" Leila stepped into the first circle. The air vibrated. A vision hit her like a tidal wave, tall figures carved from starlight cities floating above oceans. A sky split open by fire, a collapse caused by betrayal. She stumbled backward, gasping. Arin caught her. "What did you see?" "They were called the Astrion," she whispered. "A civilization older than the pyramids, older than the valley, older than anything we know." "And the shadows?" Arin asked. Leila's voice trembled. "They weren't demons, they were guardians, but something went wrong, something that wiped out the Astrion and locked their secrets underground." Arin felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Why are they chasing you?" Leila looked toward the center circle, the shifting, living one that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "Because I'm one of them," she whispered, "or what's left of them." The seal of remembrance night began to fall, and the storm seemed to weave itself around the valley like a protective cloak. Arin and Leila stood at the edge of the central circle, watching its colors swirl like a kaleidoscope of forgotten time. "We have to activate it," Leila said. "It's the only way to uncover the truth and stop the shadows." Arin didn't hesitate. "What do you need me to do?" Leila looked at him with a strange mixture of fear and trust. "Once I step into the center, the past will return, and everything will try to stop me. You must keep the shadows away no matter what." Arin nodded. "I won't let anything touch you." Leila stepped into the circle. At once, the entire plateau shook. Wind roared. The sky cracked with lightning. The shadows outside the gate sensed the awakening and let out a screech that shook the mountains. Arin drew his blade, standing guard as the first cracks formed in the stone gate. Inside the circle, Leila lifted her hands as the symbols on her skin glowed brighter than ever. The plateau reacted, the monoliths rose, the ruins rearranged, the sky itself dimmed. Then a colossal holographic figure appeared above the circle, a woman made of starlight. Her voice echoed across the valley, "Daughter of memory. You have returned." Leila's mind exploded with visions, cities collapsing, a forbidden machine, a betrayal from within. The Astrion had created something powerful, something that tore their world apart and birthed the shadows. The last thing the holographic figure said was, "To stop the shadows of the collapse, you must awaken the sky core." The vision shattered. Leila fell to her knees. Arin rushed to her side, but the shadows finally broke through the gate. A wave of darkness spilled across the plateau. Arin stood between them and Leila, blade drawn, eyes burning with determination. The shadows spoke as one. "Return the memory bearer, the core must never awaken." But Arin didn't move, he wouldn't surrender her. And Leila, trembling but determined, whispered, "Arin, the real battle begins now." The shadows surged across the plateau as if released from centuries of restraint, flowing like a dark tide seeking to reclaim what was once theirs. The stone gate lay shattered behind them, pieces still falling like ash. The wind screamed across the valley, bending the tall pillars and stirring clouds of ancient dust into spirals. Arin stepped forward, sword held firm, placing himself between Leila and the oncoming wave of darkness. His heart pounded, yet his eyes held a strange, steady fire. He had faced storms, wars, and near death dozens of times, but nothing felt as heavy, as final as this moment. Behind him, Leila rose slowly, her skin faintly glowing with the same golden pulse that awakened the plateau's circles. Her breath was shallow, but her eyes, deep, ancient, awakened, held a clarity they had never possessed before. "Arin," she whispered, "they're afraid." He kept his gaze locked on the shadows. "Good, let them fear something for once." "No," she said, "they aren't afraid of us. They're afraid of what comes next." The plateau trembled under their feet. Far above, the storm cracked open in a blazing wound of light. The sky core was waking. The SHADOW's first assault without warning, 3 shadows leapt forward, their forms elongating into blade-like shapes. Arin swung his sword with practiced efficiency, slicing through the first. It dissolved into smoke, but instantly reformed behind him, striking with unnatural speed. Leila extended her hand. A pulse of golden energy shot outward, pushing the reformed shadow backward, dispersing its shape into thin strands. Arin exhaled. "You're getting stronger." "No," Leila said, voice trembling. "The core is feeding me whether I'm ready or not." The ground cracked again as more shadows poured through the gate, climbing pillars, sliding across the stone floor, merging with each other until they grew massive, towering shapes with glowing white fractures where eyes should be. Their unified voice echoed. "The sky core must not rise." A cold wind tore through the plateau. Arin tightened his grip. Leila steadied her breath. They were outnumbered, outmatched. And yet something in the air felt connected to them. The plateau wasn't a battlefield, it was an awakening chamber. The echo of the past, a sudden shockwave rippled through the center circle, throwing Arin and Leila off balance. A holographic structure burst upward, more detailed than before, towering above the ruins like a floating temple made of crystalline light. Within it, faint silhouettes moved, echoes of Astrion ancestors performing rituals, guarding something immense at the structure's heart. Leila's voice was barely audible. "I've seen this place in my visions. This is where the core was first sealed." Arin helped her to her feet. "So how do we unseal it?" Leila closed her eyes, touching the glowing mark on her wrist. "We don't open it," she whispered. "It opens when it chooses." Suddenly, a shadow erupted from the ground beneath them, latching onto Leila's ankle and dragging her backward. Leila! Arin lunged, driving his sword through the creature's head. It screeched, the blade tearing its form apart in a burst of black mist. But more shadows crawled forward, 6 of them coiling around Leila like living chains. She gasped as her glowing began to flicker. Arin's stomach twisted. If the shadows extinguished her light, they would win, not just the battle, the whole ancient war. He charged at them, but the largest shadow, towering humanoid, fractured, stepped between them and raised a massive arm that resembled a blade of night. Arin was thrown backward, slamming into a stone pillar hard enough to crack it. He tasted blood. He saw stars, but he forced himself back up. He wasn't letting her fall, not now, not ever. Elias, awakening the shadows, tightening around Leila's body, whispered in a voice colder than ice, "Memory bearer, sleep." Her eyes dimmed. The light on her skin faded. Arin sprinted toward her again, this time ducking under the giant shadow's blow and leaping onto its arm, driving his blade into its shoulder. It roared, thrashing violently, but he held on, using momentum to vault himself forward, straight into the center of the circle beside Leila. He grabbed her shoulders. "Leila, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open slightly. "Arin, I can't." "Yes, you can. Listen to me." His voice trembled raw. "You told me the core responds to you, so call it. Command it. You are Astrion, one of the last, so act like it." The shadows hissed and pulled harder. Leila's breath shook. "I'm afraid." Arin pressed his forehead against hers. "So am I, but fear doesn't matter. You're not alone, not anymore." For a heartbeat, everything stilled. The storm above fell silent. The shadows froze. Even the wind stopped. Leila's eyes widened as her pulse synced with the plateau, its patterns, its circles, its ancient heartbeat. Then it happened. Her entire body ignited with brilliant gold, white, and celestial blue. The shadows recoiled violently, screaming in anguish. Arin shielded his eyes from the brightness. Leila rose into the air, not floating, awakening. The symbols carved on the plateau lit up in sequence, forming a massive star map across the ground. The largest shadow lunged toward her, but she extended a single hand. A beam of pure Astrion energy tore through the creature, ripping it apart in a burst of starlight. The other shadows fled backward, trembling. Arin looked up in awe. "Leila, you—" "I am remembering," she whispered, her voice layered with 2 tones, hers and something older. "I remember the collapse, I remember the betrayal, and I remember what I was created to protect." Her eyes blazed with galaxy-like patterns. The sky core, still vibrating at the plateau's center, responded with a thunderous resonance. The sky core breaks its seal, the central structure cracked, releasing beams of white-blue energy upward into the storm. Clouds spiraled like a massive vortex. Lightning split into 3, converging on the plateau. The shadows panicked, crawling backward, merging in desperate attempts to shield themselves from the unfolding cosmic blast. Leila lifted both arms toward the sky. "Arin, stand beside me." He didn't hesitate. He stepped into the circle. The moment he entered, the patterns expanded, forming 2 intertwined spirals beneath them. Leila placed her glowing hand over Arin's. Their energies synchronized, gold and white swirling around them. Arin felt something inside him stir, not magic, not power, connection. The sky core pulsed. The plateau shook violently, and then the seal shattered. A column of celestial energy shot upward, piercing the storm, splitting the clouds open to reveal a sky that seemed alive, shimmering with colors unseen for thousands of years. The shadows screamed in pure terror, melting away under the light, not dying, being erased. The tower of energy slowly dimmed. The storm calmed. Leila's glow began to fade. She lowered herself back to the stone, falling forward. Arin caught her before she hit the ground. "Leila!" Her eyes were heavy, her breath shallow. "The core is open," she whispered weakly. "But the truth, it's still buried deeper than we imagined." Arin held her close. "Then we'll uncover it together." Leila managed a faint smile. But far beyond the plateau, deep in the cracks, the shadows once guarded, a deeper darkness stirred, watching, waiting, and whispering. If the core has awakened, then the air of the collapse will rise. Arin and Leila had won a battle, but the true war, the ancient one, had only just begun. The storm had faded, leaving behind a sky washed clean of turbulence. Soft strands of dawn spread across the horizon, painting the plateau in gentle amber. The once wild winds now drifted over the valley like peaceful breath, carrying with them the distant song of awakening earth. Arin sat beside Leila, who lay resting against a pillar etched with constellations. She was still pale, still exhausted, but her breathing had grown steadier, each inhale a little stronger than the last. He brushed dust from her shoulder as she stirred. "Arin," she whispered. "I'm here," he said softly. She slowly lifted her eyes toward the shimmering ruins around them. The patterns on the ground still glowed faintly like cooling embers of a just-born star. For a long, quiet moment, neither spoke. Finally, Leila broke the silence. "The core didn't open fully," she murmured. "It only revealed its surface. The true knowledge, the ancient truth, still lies beneath." Arin nodded. "I felt it too, like a door opened just a crack. And now," she continued, laying a trembling hand on her chest where the golden mark pulsed faintly, "something deeper is calling." Arin followed her gaze. At the exact center of the plateau, where the beam of energy had broken through the storm, there now stood a circular opening carved into the stone, smooth, perfect, impossibly symmetrical. It had not been there before. A gentle white mist rose from it, swirling with faint specks of light like drifting stars. It was silent, serene, beautiful, yet undeniably ancient. Leila pushed herself upright. "We must go down." Arin helped her to her feet. "Into that?" "Yes," she steadied herself. "That is the star well." The door to the unseen, they approached the opening cautiously. The air grew cooler, carrying a faint resonance, like distant singing echoing from deep below. The mist parted gently as if acknowledging their presence. Arin peered over the edge. The descent was not a simple drop. Instead, a spiraling ramp of glowing crystal wound downward into darkness, reflecting the morning light and scattering it into soft, dreamlike patterns. "It's beautiful," Arin murmured. Leila closed her eyes and nodded. "This is where the Astrion kept their most sacred archives, not just knowledge but memory itself." She inhaled slowly. "And their warnings." Arin adjusted his pack. "Then we'd better listen closely." They took their first steps down the crystalline path. Immediately, the world above softened, sound fading, wind quieting, sunlight becoming a distant shimmer. The deeper they descended, the more the temperature changed. Not cold, not warm, balanced, perfectly balanced like an untouched world. As they reached the first turn of the spiral, soft lights began to appear in the walls, thousands of tiny specks pulsing in harmony. Leila brushed her fingers across them. "These are memory nodes," she said. "Fragments of events preserved by the Astrion. They don't store thoughts, they store moments." Arin leaned closer. "What kind of moments?" she exhaled. "Moments they didn't want the universe to forget." The lights responded to her presence, brightening, shifting, revealing faint shapes within them, silhouettes, cities of stone and glass, towers rising like constellations turned into architecture, oceanic lights swirling beneath floating platforms. Arin stared in awe. "This is Atlantis." Leila nodded softly. "No myths, no illusions, just the memories they left behind." As they continued downward, the lights formed moving scenes, silent echoes of an era both unimaginably advanced and deeply peaceful. Arin slowed to watch an image of children running across a sky bridge suspended between crystal towers. Another showed scholars studying holographic star maps thousands of years before such tools should have existed. "Why did they disappear?" Arin whispered. Leila did not answer immediately. Her expression had changed. "The collapse was never a single event," she said softly. "It was a convergence of forces too ancient for words." Arin studied her face, the way her eyes reflected the glowing walls. "You're remembering again," he said gently. She nodded. "Fragments, emotions, warnings, and something else." "What?" She hesitated. "Something was searching for us even then." The lights dimmed suddenly as though reacting to her words. The chamber of still time at last, the spiraling path ended at a wide arched doorway. It opened into an expansive chamber unlike anything Arin had ever seen. The walls gleamed like liquid obsidian, reflecting their figures with strange depth. At the center of the chamber floated a sphere of blue-white energy, suspended without any visible support. Around it lay concentric rings of symbols, slowly rotating like the gears of a celestial clock. Leila stepped forward. "This is the Astrion chronosphere," she whispered. "The place where they recorded the very last days before the drowning of the silent continent." Arin scanned the walls. "Do you think it still works?" "It was meant to last forever," she said softly. She approached the sphere and placed her hand gently against its cool surface. Immediately, the symbols quickened. A pulse radiated outward, illuminating the chamber in breathtaking waves. Images formed in the air, clearer than the memory nodes above. A grand city bathed in sunlight, floating spires vibrating with endless energy. A sky bridge connecting distant islands, then a tremor, a distortion, a shadow stretching across the horizon. The images flickered, the sky cracked with streaks of blinding light. Oceans rose, towers collapsed, stars dimmed. Arin's breathing slowed. He felt as though he stood on the edge of a memory that had the weight of an entire civilization behind it. Leila's voice trembled. They weren't destroyed by nature or war, or their own hubris. She stepped back as the images continued to shift, revealing a colossal shape moving across the sky, blurred, vast, incomprehensible. Arin squinted. "What is that?" Leila shook her head. "Not a creature, not a weapon, something older, a cosmic phenomenon that the Astrion feared above all." Her voice lowered. "The divergence." Arin frowned. "What's that?" "It is," she paused, searching for a word. "A tear, a thinning, a boundary between realities wearing down. It sweeps through star systems every few 100,000 years. And Atlantis was caught in it?" Arin asked. Leila nodded. "They tried to hide, to shield themselves, to anchor their continent to the fabric of the world." Her eyes filled with distant sadness. "But nothing can anchor a world against the divergence." The chamber dimmed again. The final image froze, an ocean swallowing the last of the shining towers. Then silence. The deeper revelation Arin swallowed, his voice a low whisper. "If they knew the divergence was coming, why didn't they warn the world?" Leila answered with a trembling breath. "They did." "What do you mean?" She slowly turned toward him, her golden pulse flickering faintly beneath her skin. "Everything they built, every symbol, every guardian, every shadow, every temple was created not to hide their history, but to protect their message." "What message?" She looked upward into the chamber's dark, star-lit dome. "The divergence is returning." Arin felt the words settle in his chest like cold stone. "How soon?" Leila closed her eyes. "I don't know, but the core awakened because the world is nearing the same cycle." The chamber began to pulse, slow, insistent, urgent. The chronosphere dimmed as though exhausted from revealing too much. Arin reached for Leila's hand. "So what do we do?" Her eyes opened, glowing softly. "We keep going," she said. "The deeper archives lie below this chamber. They contain the Astrion's final instructions." Arin tightened his grip. "Then we find them." Leila nodded. Together they turned toward the far end of the chamber where a new doorway had begun to form, shaped by light born of the chronosphere's fading glow. As they approached it, the mist parted once more. The walls hummed. The ground trembled with gentle resonance. The doorway opened fully, revealing a narrow path descending into a place untouched since the last breath of Atlantis. Leila looked at Arin quietly. "Whatever lies below," she whispered, "will change everything." Arin met her gaze, steady and unafraid. "Then we face it side by side." They stepped forward, the doorway closed behind them. "And so," the narrator's voice would whisper, "the journey drifted deeper into the heart of forgotten ages, where the past waited patiently to speak once more." The blue flames collapsed behind Arin and Leila as the enormous obsidian door slammed shut, trapping the shadows on the other side for now. Their breaths came fast, their bodies trembling, their eyes still adjusting from the blinding white surge that saved them seconds earlier. But the chamber they had entered was nothing like the narrow tunnels before. It was alive. The chamber that breathes a vast circular hall unfolded around them, roof stretching so high that their torches couldn't touch its edges. The air felt warm, like they had stepped into the lungs of an ancient beast. The stone floor pulsed faintly beneath their feet, thump, thump, thump. As if matching the rhythm of their own hearts, Leila gulped. "Arin, this place is not a chamber. It feels like a heart," Arin finished, whispering. A soft vibration hummed through the walls in response. The murals of the first ones, their eyes caught the massive murals carved into the circular walls. These weren't simple carvings. Each figure seemed carved with impossible depth, shadows shifting even when they weren't moving. The murals told stories older than kingdoms, a civilization rising from the sea, crowned with crystal-like towers. A portal of light with figures stepping through. A war of darkness, shadows devouring entire cities. A lone child whose silhouette matched Arin's more than he cared to admit. Leila's hand trembled as she touched the carving of the child. "Arin, why do these murals show someone who looks exactly like you?" He swallowed, unable to speak. His voice was lost somewhere between fear and destiny. Before he could answer, the floor pulsed again, this time harder. The first echo awakens, a voice rose within the chamber, not from above, not from behind, not even from the walls. It came from inside their bones. "Echo bearer," Leila jumped back. "Who said that?" Again the voice rippled. "The child returns to the heart of beginnings." Arin's pulse rattled. That voice, it wasn't unfamiliar. He had heard it before, in dreams, in faint whispers in the forest, ever since he was small. He stepped forward unconsciously. The center of the chamber began to glow. Stone peeled back like petals of a flower, revealing a floating, crystalline sphere swirling with silver mist. Leila grabbed his wrist. "Wait, Arin, you don't know what this thing is?" He shook his head. "I think it's been calling me for years." The sphere of memory. Arin reached his hand toward the sphere. It reacted instantly. A beam of silver light wrapped around his arm and dragged him forward, pinning him to the crystal. Leila screamed and rushed to pull him back, but the air turned heavy, pushing her away like an invisible wall. Arin's eyes rolled back. Images flooded him, not visions, memories. A city of impossible architecture, people chanting his name, Arin Tar, they called him, the first chosen, the one who held the echo, a fragment of the world's origin. He saw the war, he saw the shadows, he saw the child himself being sealed away in time. And then he saw a woman holding his hand, silver eyes, dark hair. A mark on her wrist shaped like a crescent, Leila but older and wearing the royal garments of the ancient race. Arin gasped, jerking awake. The sphere released him, dropping him to the ground. Leila ran to his side. Arin, talk to me." His eyes were wide with shock. "Leila, this isn't our first time here." She froze. "What do you mean?" He grabbed her shoulders. "We knew each other before, in that ancient kingdom. You were there. You were something important." Leila shook her head slowly. "No. I would remember something like that." Arin's voice trembled. "You were one of the last guardians." Leila stared into his eyes, and something deep inside her flickered, a faint echo like a forgotten dream poking through layers of time. But before she could speak, the hall reacts, the entire structure trembled. A roar erupted from behind the walls, like 1,000 whispers twisting into a scream. Leila looked at the door they came from. Dark mist began seeping through the cracks. The shadows had found them again. Arin stood up, still dizzy but determined. "We need to get out now." But the chamber had other plans. The murals rotated, stones shifted. A staircase appeared underneath the crystal sphere, descending into an even darker abyss. The voice spoke once more, louder. "Descend, Echo Bearer. The path to truth lies below." Leila stared into the abyss. "Arin, this is insane. We barely survived the last part." He took her hand gently. "I saw what happens if we don't go down there." Her throat tightened. "What did you see?" Arin's face was pale. "Everything dies." Leila closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded. "Then we go together." 6. Descent into the unknown. The staircase spiraled downward endlessly, lit only by faint blue pulses glowing within the stone. Leila spoke softly. "Arin, those memories you saw, you really think we lived before?" He looked at her, his voice quiet but curt. "I saw you protecting me. I saw you die for me." Leila's breath stopped. "I won't let that happen again," Arin whispered. She squeezed his hand tighter. Behind them, the shadows howled, furious, starving. Ahead of them, the abyss whispered, quiet, ancient, waiting. And so they descended further toward the forgotten core of the world, toward the secret of Arin's rebirth, toward the truth Leila had been sealed away from. The white metal gates parted like curtains of moonlight, revealing a world that should not exist beneath the earth. Arin and Leila stood frozen at the threshold. Before them stretched an entire city suspended in air, its platforms held aloft by ancient energy fields that shimmered in pale turquoise light. Crystal bridges crossed in elegant arcs. Clouds of dust drifted upward instead of falling. The architecture blended stone, glass, and energy, every structure glowing with faint, rhythmic pulses like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Leila whispered, "Arin, this place, it's alive," he finished, breathless. The lost capital of the first ones was no ruin. It was waiting, dormant but not dead. Far above, a shattered dome of translucent crystal encased the skyline. Through its cracks, streaks of blue-white lightning snaked like veins of light. Arin felt a tremor inside his chest, the same pulse he had felt in the hall. The sphere's memories still shimmered behind his eyes. This city had known him. This city had feared him. This city had chosen him. But humility was a luxury he couldn't afford now. Shadows were still hunting them. And he could feel them getting closer, like cold fingers brushing the back of his neck. When the Bridge of Echoes, the first bridge, stretched before them, thin, crystalline, barely a palm wide. Beneath it yawned a bottomless chasm filled with swirling silver mist. Leila swallowed. "Are you sure this thing will hold?" Arin stepped onto it. The bridge lit up beneath his foot, solidifying into a broader walkway. He smiled faintly. "It recognizes me." Leila raised a brow. "Good for you. What if it doesn't recognize me?" Arin reached his hand toward her. "Then stay close." She took his hand, warm, tense, trembling, and stepped forward. The bridge expanded again, welcoming them both. But as they began walking, whispers rose from the mist below, not the shadows, something older, something watching. Leila tightened her grip. "Arin, do you hear that?" He nodded. "Fragments, echoes, memories." The voices weren't hostile, yet they weren't comforting either. It felt like being judged by the dead. Halfway across, the mist convulsed violently. A figure rose from it, translucent, glowing, shifting between forms. Child, elder, warrior, queen, a dozen identities flickering in one body. It spoke in a single, hollow voice. "Echo Bearer, you return." Arin stopped. "We're searching for the truth," he said. We need answers. The echo being hovered closer, its face shifting into the image of a woman with silver eyes, the same woman he saw in the sphere's vision. Leila gasped softly. Arin. That looks like, I know, the figure whispered. You seek truth, but truth seeks a price. Arin's jaw clenched. What price? The figure pointed at Leila. Arin stepped in front of her instantly. No, whatever this is, take it from me. The being's many faces warped into something sorrowful. You misunderstand. Her price is awakening. A blast of energy shot from its hand, striking Leila in the chest. She screamed as her knees buckled. Arin caught her before she fell. Leila. Stay with me, look at me. But her eyes flickered, silver bleeding into brown, then back again, like something inside her was trying to break free. The figure whispered, The Guardian sleeps no longer. Then it dissolved into mist. The bridge quieted. Leila collapsed against Arin, breathing hard, trembling uncontrollably. Arin, something inside me, it's waking up. He held her tightly. I won't let it control you, I promise. But the fear in her eyes showed she wasn't afraid of losing control. She was afraid of what she used to be. To the floating city, the bridge ended near a circular platform covered in floating runes. As they stepped off, the city bloomed around them like a living organism sensing their presence. Light surged through long, dormant conduits, illuminating towers and walkways. Leila steadied herself on Arin's arm. Everything is responding, she said. Like we're part of it. Arin nodded, scanning the surroundings. I think we are. They walked deeper into the city. More structures awakened, windows lighting up, mechanisms whirring, ancient gears turning smoothly after centuries of silence. Arin approached a towering obelisk marked with swirling glyphs. When his hand touched it, the glyphs rearranged themselves, forming a map, holographic light swirling above the stone. Leila stared. What is this? A layout of the capital, Arin said. And look, he pointed to a glowing mark at the very center of the largest platform. The throne of light, keystone, Leila whispered. That must be where we're headed. Arin lowered his hand, and the shadows know it. A low rumble echoed across the city, deep, resonant, predatory. Leila turned pale. They're close. Arin reached for her hand again. Then let's move. Through the market of silent faces, they passed through what must have once been a grand marketplace. Stalls carved from blue stone lined the walkways. Floating shelves displayed ancient artifacts frozen in time. But something was wrong. Everywhere they looked, there were statues. Hundreds, thousands, men, women, children captured mid-movement, mid-laughter, mid-fear. Leila shivered. These aren't statues, were they? Arin nodded grimly. Turn to crystal, the final days of the fall. He approached one, a young girl clutching a crystalline bird. Her face was frozen in terror. Leila's voice cracked. What happened to them? The shadows, Arin whispered. They were hunting the city. Anyone who touched corrupted darkness turned to crystal. Leila stepped in front of him, lifting his chin gently. Arin, if that's true, then we don't have long before they. A shadow flew overhead. A massive one, winged, screeching, terrifying. Leila grabbed Arin's arm. Run! 4. The chase across the sky platforms, they sprinted as the giant shadow creature dove toward them. It shrieked like tearing metal. Arin pulled Leila onto a narrow platform that slid across the city, levitating like a gondola on invisible rails. The creature slammed onto the platform behind them, its claws scraping sparks from the stone. Arin shoved Leila forward. Go, I'll distract it. No, she cried, grabbing him. You're not leaving me again, not in this life or the last. The creature lunged. Arin thrust out his hand instinctively. A shockwave of silver light blasted from his palm, throwing the monster off the platform. Arin fell to his knees, stunned. Leila stared in awe. You did that without the sphere. Arin looked at his own hand, terrified. I didn't know I could. And you looked like, she hesitated. Arin, you looked like the child in the murals, the one destined to hold the echo. He shook his head. I'm not ready for that. I'm not even sure I want it. Leila knelt beside him, gripping his arm. You don't get to choose destiny, but you do get to choose who you face it with. He looked up. She held his gaze firmly, and something inside him steadied. Then I choose you, he said quietly. She exhaled shakily. Good, because you're stuck with me. The platform slowed as they approached the central spire, the tallest structure in the city. 5. The central spire, the spire's gates towered above them, carved with swirling lines of light. As they approached, the gates parted. Inside was a massive spiral staircase lit by blue crystals. Arin helped Leila steady herself. You ready? Not even close, she said with a half smile. But let's go. They began the long climb. Every step hummed underfoot. Every breath grew heavier. Halfway up, Leila leaned on the railing, panting. I feel memories, she whispered, trying to break through. Arin looked at her gently. Let them come slowly, you're not alone, she nodded, her voice trembling. I remember being here just faintly. I was a guardian and you were. Suddenly, the entire tower shook. A deafening roar echoed upward. The shadows had found the spire. Arin pulled Leila close. We're out of time. They sprinted the remaining stairs. 6. The throne of light at the top. They emerged into an enormous circular chamber. And there it was. A throne carved from fractured crystal and radiant metal, hovering pieces connected by pure energy beams. Symbols spiraled around it like orbiting moons. Arin felt it calling to him. Leila stepped forward hesitantly. This is the keystone, she said. The heart of the city. Arin moved closer, mesmerized. But then the shadows surged into the chamber, hundreds of them, swarming like a living storm. Leila drew the ancient blade she found earlier, its edge glowing blue. Arin turned back to her. Leila, get behind me. No, she shouted. We fight together. The shadows howled and charged. Arin staggered backward, his body vibrating, energy rising, eyes glowing silver. The room began to shift around him. Leila's voice echoed distantly. Arin, what's happening? He fell to his knees as blinding light erupted from the throne. A deep, ancient voice thundered. The echo returns. 7. The awakening light swallowed everything. Arin saw visions flooding him, the city before its fall, the guardians at their posts. Leila among them, older, powerful, fearless, himself small, glowing, revered. Then the war, the shadows tearing the city apart, the last stand, Leila defending him to her final breath, his power exploding, the sealing of time, the rebirth. He screamed as the memories overloaded him. Leila fought toward him through the storm of shadows. Arin, A-R-I-N. Reached him just as the throne completed its activation. A shockwave exploded outward, shadows disintegrated in the blast, the light dimmed, and Arin collapsed motionless. Leila fell to her knees, holding him. Arin, no, please stay with me. His eyes opened slowly, but they were no longer his usual eyes. They were fully silver, and when he spoke, his voice carried a second echo beneath it. I remember everything, Leila. She pressed her forehead to his. Then remember one thing more, she whispered. You promised we'd face this together. Arin lifted his hand, power crackling through his veins. We will, he said, and the entire city began to wake. The throne of light hummed softly, like an ancient heart remembering how to beat. Around it, the floating city glowed brighter than before, tower by tower, bridge by bridge, the lost capital of Atlantis reawakened. Arin stood at its center, silver light gently radiating from his hands. Leila stood beside him, her breathing steady now, her eyes no longer uncertain but filled with an ancient quiet strength. It felt as if time itself paused to watch them. For countless centuries, Atlantis had waited, for its echo-bearer, for its guardian, for its final awakening. And now they were both here. The city speaks one last time. A soft wind rose inside the chamber, even though no wind should exist here. It carried with it whispers, not frightening, but solemn and warm, like the voices of ancestors speaking from a far horizon. Children of the first light, the voices said, echoing gently between the crystal pillars. Your journey ends where ours began. Leila closed her eyes, tears forming. I remember this voice, she whispered. They were our teachers, our family. Arin reached for her hand. You're not alone in remembering anymore. The throne brightened. A holographic pattern unfolded before them. A circular star map showing how Atlantis once connected the ancient world. Greece, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, even far-off Pacific islands. Atlantis was not just a continent. It was once a guiding light to all human civilization. The voice continued. Once the world was whole, but when darkness rose, we created the echo to preserve our knowledge and the guardian to protect it. Leila touched her chest. I was that guardian. Arin touched the glowing center of the throne. And I was the echo. But the voice softened. You are not what you were, you are what you have become. The past does not bind you now. The words were almost like a farewell. 2. The final choice, a sphere of warm light rose from the throne and hovered between Arin and Leila. Within it, shifting patterns formed, memories, futures, possibilities. Leila looked at it with awe. What is it? Arin understood instantly. It's the city's last gift. It's offering us the fate of Atlantis and the fate of the shadows. The sphere pulsed, revealing 2 ancient choices. Path of restoration, Atlantis could rise again fully. The floating city could return to the world above. Its knowledge, technology, and history would become known once more. Humanity would change forever. Path of rest, Atlantis would fade back into peaceful silence. Its secrets would remain undisturbed. The shadows, bound to the old world, would dissolve with it. Only Arin and Leila would remember. A memory carried gently through time. Leila looked at him, soft, breath trembling. What do you want, Arin? He gazed across the awakened city, its beauty, its sadness, its ancient burden. Atlantis fell trying to save the world. If we bring it back, humanity might try to use it, control it, repeat history. He paused. And I don't want our lives to become a legend others fight over. Leila stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. We've carried enough worlds inside us. Maybe it's time to carry only our own. Arin nodded. Then together they touched the sphere. The last light rises the city responded instantly, not with destruction, not with collapse, but with the most peaceful transformation they had ever witnessed. Light swept across the spires like a gentle tide. Bridges dissolved into shimmering mist. The floating platforms slowly drifted upward, turning into glowing dust that ascended like stars returning to the sky. Arin and Leila stood in the center as the throne itself began to fade. The voice spoke one final time. Be free of us, be free of destiny. Live not as echoes, but as yourselves. The entire city lifted into the air in billions of tiny lights like a galaxy rising out of the earth. The darkness evaporated, the shadows faded, time settled into silence. When the last tower dissolved, only Arin and Leila remained standing on a quiet stone platform beneath the open sky. Atlantis had finally peacefully rested. Returning to the world above when they blinked, they were back near the coastline from where their journey began. The sun was setting, painting the water orange and gold. No ruins, no shadows, no ancient thrones, just the vast, quiet ocean. Leila breathed deeply as if waking from a long dream. It's over. Arin nodded, watching the gentle waves. Atlantis chose peace, and so did we. She looked at him with a soft smile. And what do we choose now? He took her hand without hesitation. We choose our life, our journey, our future. Leila leaned on his shoulder. The wind carried the faintest whisper of ancient voices, but only as a memory now, never again as a burden. They walked along the shore, no hurry, no fear, just quiet footsteps and the sound of the evening sea. Two souls once bound to a forgotten world, now free to live in this one. The final reflection night came gently. Stars appeared one by one, mirroring the lights that had risen from Atlantis. Arin watched the horizon and said softly, Do you think anyone will ever know the truth? Leila shook her head with a peaceful smile. They'll hear fragments, legends, whispers, but the real story, she touched her heart, will live here. Arin looked at her the way someone looks at the first sunrise after a long winter. We didn't save Atlantis, he said. We let it finally sleep. And in doing so, Leila whispered, we saved ourselves. They sat together on the warm sand as the tide crept closer. No shadows followed, no voices called, no ancient destiny waited, only calmness, only the ocean, only the stars, only the quiet end of a journey that began thousands of years ago. A soft breeze brushed past them, carrying a final echo from the deep. Thus, the mystery rests once more beneath the quiet passage of time. And with that, the last light of Atlantis faded gently into eternity.